That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we see on a month-to-month basis. It's time to crack open our...
Movie Memoirs!
Yeah! All right. Yeah! I'm quite excited about this month in some ways, Dragon, because I think the new releases, I'm just going to come right out and say, like, maybe not the overall best batch of new releases we've had in the history of movie memoirs since we've been doing this, like, in a month. Definitely one of the most eclectic and interesting for me. Like, as far as like indie stuff, I have been eating relatively well this month, Dragon. It's the month of Borderlands and The Crow, but it's also the month of Dee and Alien Resurrection and or Alien Romulus, and Cuckoo, quite a few other ones that we'll get into that I'm a big fan of. So yes, this has been a good month for me. But also a month where I was stuck in DisneyToon hell, Dragon, as you know. And so, folks, I'm not going to have any TV, and I'm going to have one notable movie in catch-up, and then just a bunch of DisneyToon stuff. So stay tuned for that. Anyways, Dragon, let's get right into it. Let's start with the news. I'll let you kind of take the lead on the first guy. We have... in loving memory, in memoriam, I should say, we have Phil Donahue, recently passed away, legendary broadcasting personality.
Yes, the great Phil Donahue. Essentially, the king, his big title was the king of the daytime talk show. I mean, before pre-Oprah, you had Phil Donahue. Phil Donahue created the model for back before Oprah was all about free cars and everything. It was back when she was like let me put it this way, that episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where everyone was on the Oprah Winfrey show, like the OG Oprah. That's kind of what Phil Donahue's model was. That was then adopted by everyone else. So very much he was the basically. It's also kind of like Jerry Springer when he's walking around. Again, it was kind of the classy version of Jerry Springer before it kind of devolved into trash TV. So that's what I'm saying. Donahue, he crafted the model, which then has been interpreted by many other people over the years, which then kind of turned into stuff like The View. So you don't get daytime talk shows like they are now. Before it's like,
are you telling me we don't get the talk without Phil Donahue?
Yes, Tiki, we don't get the talk.
Oh my God.
No, but seriously, the fact that he actually kind of did in kind of this classy way back and was very conversational, and the audience kind of participated, which of course we see now in a modern kind of context how that kind of thing goes, even with podcasting. So you don't really have the audience interaction kind of in the room, without Donahue kind of getting the ball rolling there. And the one thing I want to mention with Donahue too is Naked Gun 3, Naked Gun 33, and there was some fraction after
33 and a third, I think.
I think so. I could be wrong, but it was some ridiculous fraction of some kind. Point being, Naked Gun 3. The third act of that movie is awesome. And the third act of the movie essentially it's chaos at the Oscars, and Phil Donahue is presenting, and Frank Drebin basically karate chops and knocks out Phil Donahue, and he puts on a pair of glasses because the idea, Leslie Nielsen with the white hair, if you were wearing a pair of glasses, he could pass as Phil Donahue. So it's basically Phil Donahue causing all this chaos at the Oscars. You have the great line said by James Earl Jones. It's I think Angel Lansbury or someone says to him, what do you make that out to be, James? James Earl Jones says, Phil Donahue throwing up in a tuba.
I think I remember that. Yeah, I have seen that clip.
So it's just, again, the best thing you can say about that movie is the third act is amazing, and Phil Donahue essentially makes that third act in the sense of the word. So we'll never be able to forget Phil Donahue in that sense.
Fair enough. All right, Dragon. The next person, the only other person on our list this month for In Memoriam, we've got to pay tribute to the late, great Rachel Lillis. Dragon, this one hits, man. This one hits for me because I don't know about you. I know you're familiar with Pokemon, but did you grow up with the anime like I did?
I mean, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I swear to God, before she passed, I'm not just. I feel kind of horrible. It kind of timed out to be this way, but I've been trying to. I've told you before. I've been kind of getting in touch with my anime roots since I got the Dragon Ball set for Christmas.
Uh huh.
And like I made my way through everything else, and I figured, I was going to originally buy the set on DVD, and I saw like, oh, how serendipitous! The Pokemon that I grew up with is on Netflix, so I'm planning my next binge to be, the first season, the Indigo League season of Pokemon. So that's the season, and back when it was like I think like 150 Pokemon, like back in
Oh
the
yeah,
simple
back in the
times.
good old days when there was the world felt endless, but it still felt like there was like, you could feasibly actually catch them all.
I was there until Tracy showed up, and then I kind of
Tracy
dipped.
was boring, but we've had this conversation before.
Look, I'm not knocking Tracy. I'm just saying that's the point in which I kind of dropped off because my interest went other ways, and I dipped in maybe occasionally to back when we kind of did like the Ruby Sapphire era of
Mm.
Pokemon with like Max and May, and anyway, the point being, uh, yeah. So I mean, I was there for OG Pokemon when it aired on Cartoon Network. But at least when it reran on Cartoon Network, and I remember like taping it and stuff, and I was there because again the whole collectability aspect, the whole like the 150 like back when it was a simple number aspect. So I was there for Pokemon.
So yeah, Rachel Lillis voices, of course, an iconic character in Pokemon, Misty, and also Jessie. So the two really iconic female characters in Pokemon lore, and
That's just incredible that she voiced both of those characters. Also Jigglypuff, but those two characters.
Jigglypuff is also a fun, like, yeah, that's a fun third one that she does as well. Yeah. I don't know, Dragon. This one hurts. This one feels like it
Well,
kind of
yeah.
feels like a part of my childhood just died.
I mean, it's also, she died in a rather sad way too. I mean, breast cancer at 55, like
Uh huh.
that's pretty sad too. I mean, died way too young. And again, she's a part of a lot of people's childhoods, and that, whether or not like Pokemon, just being anyone who starts Pokemon in any way, shape, or form, Ash Ketchum is there, and you look into the Ash Ketchum character, Misty's right there. Misty's like, he stole Misty's bike. It all starts there. Then you have like Team Rocket, like Team Rocket. I want to say was the carryover. So she was always around.
Sure, sure.
So it's sad to lose the greats like that.
All right. So we're gonna go from losing really really great icons of the industry to
Yeah,
just dealing with death in a really what the fuck kind of way with Disney. Like, Dragon, do you want to guide them through it, man?
yeah.
I'm just like baffled by this.
So I mean, yeah. So we're kind of transitioning from the loss of icons to kind of like the house of icons, kind of letting us down.
You can see, yeah, letting us down. I think this is a little bit more than just like a stern disappointment. I think this is just like Disney, your evil is showing.
So, yeah, Disney. Well, of course, there are many. Us being as well, for all intents and purposes, kind of a mostly Disney-based channel. We've seen the highs and the lows of the Walt Disney Company, and this is certainly a very a big low. It's kind of like nearing a rock bottom in terms of kind of ethical business practices here. So essentially, long story short, what happened here, without boring you with like all the legalese, essentially, if I understand it right, at one of the Disney parks, someone had like one of those pre-ordered super expensive meals,
Uh-huh.
and they specified like, hey, has an allergy. I don't know if it was like a shellfish. I think it was like a shellfish allergy or something. The point being, there was an allergy of some kind, and like that, it was like reiterated. Okay, so I want to make sure the food's okay, right? There's no allergens in the food, and they said, "Oh yeah, sure, you're fine." And this couple, I believe it was a husband and wife couple. The wife, had her food, and she died of an allergic reaction. Very sad. Now, traditionally, how this is supposed to go is, from at least from what I understand, what I've heard. You can probably kind of verify this. I mean, the way I always heard is if a family member dies in a Disney park, you basically get a gold card because this is obviously a horrible, traumatizing thing that's happened to you. They'll give you like, okay, look, you can come to the park anytime you want, something along those lines. The point being, the implication that Disney would make this sort of thing right without question, historically.
Historically, yes.
Historically, yes. I'm just saying back, and that's always the thing I heard. Like if a family member dies in Disney park, you
But
get like
now,
life.
Dragon, the we've got to have money guy is in
Yeah.
control of the Disney company.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Back then, it was like if a family member passed, you get like lifetime passes till the end of time because it's like a horrible thing, and you would imagine like obviously it's a drop in the bucket with a human life, but still, it's like there is an effort there.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, the matter being taken to court, they were fighting it, and they're trying to deny all responsibility on this. And in doing so, they pulled the shadiest legal tactic you've ever seen in your life.
I would fucking kill to just have Bob Odenkirk in character as Saul Goodman just dissect the hell out of this.
Good God, that would be fun. Yeah, actually, speaking of which, I think the Legal Eagles probably tackled this lately. I haven't watched his videos in a while, but he usually covers this kind of stuff. So it's kind of an equivalent,
Uh-huh.
Obviously without the sharp, kind of the sharp dressing and just kind of like ambiance of Saul Goodman, but still.
The ambiance of Saul Goodman.
Oh, to be 19 again, kind of,
Oh, God.
The corpuscles are corpuscling. Anyway, so it's going on. Anyway, so essentially, they tried using the Disney Plus terms and services, wall of like legalese text that you click accept and you just hit OK with on Disney Plus, which essentially says it basically links all Disney services to like you're agreeing not to pursue legal action if you say yes to Disney Plus. They looked into it. This guy has being a Disney fan. What else does he go to a Disney
How
park?
dare he have a Disney Plus account, Dragon? It makes me fucking sick.
So basically, in the legalese of it all, long story short, is like it's like, well, we can basically they tried arguing, they tried having it thrown out completely based on the fact that they clicked the legal agreement that said no, we can't sue. It's not even just like an admittance of like when you buy the tickets or anything or you sign up for the meals. No. It's like they're going out of their way to say on this very separate thing from the parks or the dining experience.
Mm-hmm.
It is just watching anything under the Disney banner. You've signed your soul away, or like basically Disney is protected against any wrongdoing, and this led to quite a stir, and everyone justifiably disgusted. Everyone across the board is utterly disgusted by this business practice and letting the Disney company have it. And basically, they backpedaled, saying, "No, we're going to allow the matter to go to court. Like we'll see how it goes. So that's essentially how that shaped out.
I mean, I literally have not. I think this story sort of speaks for itself. I have nothing else to add except just shame, Disney. Shame. I mean, seriously, dude, this is
it is rather abhorrent.
It is just ghastly. It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is not nice. Of course, like to bolster things, like like around the time this happens, like okay, we need good buzz immediately. Call the Hot Ones guy. Let's do the Donald Duck 90th anniversary.
We should have talked about that. I didn't actually watch it, but if we would have included it on Memoirs, I would have. But yeah, that's a pop culture moment right there.
It's great though.
Oh, I imagine it is.
Oh yeah, you'd love it. Jacob saw it; he loved it too. It's amazing. Anyway, some more bad news.
Yes.
No death, thankfully. We're moved away from the death finally, but still just bad news. So Warner Brothers, they've dropped. Warner Brothers has dropped the ball.
Crazy, dude. Like nobody should ever make a movie under Warner Brothers, please.
Well, here's the thing:
insanity.
They didn't even make it. Like Warner Brothers, said, "Oh yeah, we'll distribute it for you." You know what? Never mind.
I mean, honestly, this might be like almost on the same level of just shadiness as the Disney thing. Especially when you consider the fact that Warner Brothers has like an ongoing history of this type of shit.
Yeah. So Warner Brothers initially agreed to. So there was a Sony movie made. Evgeny Tarkovsky. I don't know if he officially has a deal with Sony or not, because he's got a couple projects developed at Sony, and sadly, aside from Hotel Transylvania, they have which he's kind of moved away from after the third one, I think. He's I don't know if he tried getting that Pie movie made, and that got shelved. So I don't know how much of this is just like he's under contract with him or not. But the point being, he developed a movie. He had this movie made. I forget if it's completed or not, but it's like near completion, I'd imagine. Fixed, has like the voice cast and everything. So they've gotten pretty far along with it. If it isn't just done and ready for like release. I forget if it was supposed to be released.
Surprised if it was just in the can, because honestly, that seems to be Zaslav's MO.
I think it's in the can. I forget if it was. Do you remember if Fix was announced for this year or next year? That's what I can't remember.
Off the top of my head, I would probably say next year.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that makes me think maybe it's like pretty much as far along as it can be, with the exception of marketing and distribution stuff. Mm-hmm. Sadly, we don't market anything these days. So what's the difference? Point being, point is, this movie Fix, which is kind of an edgy kind of thing, where basically it's a dog played by Adam Devine, I believe. Basically, a dog on the night before he's slated to get neutered the next day, so he's kind of living it up on kind of his last day.
Some of it for me is basically like it's the 25th hour, but with dogs.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a really good premise. I mean, plus it's kind of an edgy comedy kind of thing. I mean, I would definitely check it out, especially if Tarkovsky's involved, which he is. So, point being, Gendy did this movie, and of course, how could you say no to Gendy? I mean, we all love Gendy.
Yeah, for sure.
So again, so Sony made the movie, but the agreement was
don't make your dumb Adam Sandler vampire movies, Gendy. That's all you're good for.
Well, again, he moved away from that. He did his trilogy, and he's out. Okay. The point being, he wasn't involved in that fourth cash-in. Yeah, that wasn't him.
I know it wasn't.
Okay, the point being, he's the movie's supposed to be distributed by Warner Brothers, but Zaslav struck again that the reason cited was literally it was part of the cost cutting thing that Warner Brothers is doing.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
But they're not even trying to
have money.
That's the thing.
Right? I swear to God, that guy isn't just running Disney or Warner Brothers. The we've got to have money guy is running all of Hollywood.
Well, technically, that guy. Well, you're right, all Hollywood, but Warner Brothers. Oh, that guy was a Warner Brothers character, so it's very apt here.
That's true.
So that guy actually was David Zaslav. So Zaslav is just running Warner Brothers. He's making Warner Brothers look bad, just really bad. I mean, where's Lorenzo Bonaventura when we need him? Because that guy, even though still there was some mismanagement there, that guy, he was a cog in the machine. He wasn't the guy at the top of the spire. That guy at least tried. That's someone you could actually trust in Warner Brothers. He's not there anymore. Point being, so Zaslav's just making everybody look bad, and this is like the fourth, possibly, there's probably more times, I'm just saying there's a fourth public time this has kind of happened, because we've had 3 projects that have been completed, shelved for the end of time, and now we have this. Now, thankfully, this is not doomed. This is just, they're going to find another distributor, kind of like we did with Cape Crusader and all the other projects. Like, this will see the light of day. It's the question of who. I think smart money is Sony's just going to do it themselves because they made the movie. I think it's probably safe because of that. But again, they're looking for
Netflix has a pretty good relationship with Sony, so I imagine it's going to go there.
So the point being, this is not as hopeless as the other, as the other Warner Brothers.
Coyote versus Acme.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a resurgence for that possibly on the rise, but we'll see what's happening. We'll see what happens. Regardless, I'm not counting on it, but never know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a couple comments. Sonia Patojas is shouting us out, saying she hopes we have a good evening.
Hey.
I hope you do too, Sonia. Happy to have you here. Okay, we have Little Blue saying, the way I see it, shame on the people who are currently running Disney. Shame on them. And indeed. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as to give Disney my coveted Roger Ebert wagging finger of shame.
I got to admit, as a guy who kind of likes Bob Iger, given that Bob Iger, his big splash on the Disney, oh man, I just realized splash is like a horrible way of phrasing that. But let's just say Iger's big kind of his big moment with the Disney company was he swooped in during that kid eaten by the alligator. Mm-hmm. So like an accident kind of in correlation with the parks. So I mean, something like that happening, him like handling that situation like a champ to now, it's not good.
Okay, that is like the scene that Christopher Cousins is gonna like
earn
that role for.
That's what I was saying. Like you have like that that's his Oscar scene right there.
All right. Okay, Joe Gias is also saying Lick Boot is the name of the Tom and Jerry character, the We've Got to Have Money character, and that's actually a really funny name. Warner Brothers needs to stop shelving films. They had me for Batgirl for a long time and threw it away. I mean, same with me and Coyote versus Acme, man. I'm right there with you. We have Keeper Colby who's saying, I read that is people who are currently at Run Disney, and I wondered what on earth Run Disney did.
Well, they sell a bunch of branded shoes, and everyone kind of runs like a 5K kind of event. You know, it's supposed to raise money for charity, but really, it's just putting money in in the parks for their legal defense, apparently.
All right, so we're kind of going off of like actively bad news into just like, all right, why not?
Yeah,
sure,
pretty much.
So I don't have a ton to add about this Jurassic World. The new Jurassic World title is now Rebirth. I don't know. Fine. Honestly, my enthusiasm for this movie is like kind of in the can.
It's been curbed.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure you don't have a lot to add either.
Nope.
Fair enough. Moving on.
Look, unless it's Battle of Big Rock, I don't care.
That's what I want them to make. I want them to make a movie that feels like that, but they're not going.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's incredible to me that in that short film, that's exactly what Dominion should have been, and they didn't do it. Like that's all. Just make that movie, but bring in the old cast. That's all you got to do.
All right.
Silver platter.
And honestly, like I like Scarlett Johansson. I don't necessarily know if she's going to fit into the Jurassic franchise, especially as a lead. I don't know.
Well, she's very talented. I'm sure she could do it. But again, here's the thing: she could do it. But we've had good people in those movies as well before, and we've seen how that turns out.
True. Yeah. Okay, James Wan is making a new Creature from the Black Lagoon movie. This excites me. This definitely excites me. James Wan has kind of been on a bit of a hiatus. I didn't necessarily love Malignant. I like how weird and ambitious Malignant was, but at the end of the day, it was a little too weird for my tastes. So I like that James Wan is kind of going back to the well with classic horror, because I still think the first two Conjuring movies, Conjuring 2 especially, some of the all-time best modern-day haunted house movies that we have. So, yeah, I'm excited for this.
Of course, the main reason they're doing this is last time a hard director came to Universal and said, like, "Hey, I want to do a Creature in the Black Lagoon movie." It was Guillermo del Toro, and they said no, and it won an Oscar for it with another studio. They're definitely saying yes to James Wan.
right.
By the same token, though, it just feels kind of hollow at this point. It's like, well, we already have it with The Shape of Water. We don't need.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. I'm going to push back on you a little bit here, though.
I'm not saying he's not going to do good with it. I'm just saying.
No. I'm just saying James Wan is absolutely going to make a more horror-centric Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like Guillermo del Toro, I respect The Shape of Water a lot. I don't necessarily think that we can't have like a more old school scary Creature from the Black Lagoon just because Shape of Water exists.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's really Juan's main thing. He'll be able to sell like the scariness of the creature, which, sure. I mean, we have the
which I think James Wan, I mean, that's one of the things he does really well is set piece scares.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
And Colby, you're right. I also am a big fan of the first two Insidious movies. The first Saw is okay. I just think, ironically enough, Saw is one of the few franchises where it gets better the more movies apart from James Wan it gets, which is weird. It's like the one franchise that you can actually say that with.
I mean, honestly, that's what it's going to boil down to. The only thing James Wan can do is he's going to sell into kind of like the aesthetic of the creature, where Del Toro was about kind of like, like the drive and romance of the creature. So, but it's I mean, it'll still work. It's just going to be it's going to interesting to bifurcate that aspect of them.
All right, so here's some member berries that I really don't care about. Dragon, tell them about it. Yay! No one's ever really gone. Yes, credit to Geekvolution for pulling that quote.
All right, so James Spader has been announced to be returning as Ultron in Vision Quest, and they're saying that they're promising it's not a cameo; it's actually a role here. So, I expected my hope was that James Spader was going to cameo in WandaVision, like when we got White.
I kind of feel like this is a little bit like too little, too late. Yeah. I kind of feel like he should have been brought back in WandaVision, and now I just don't care.
What excites me about this is, I think again, mine is all speculation, but had he been in WandaVision, it would have been a cameo, unless we actually made White Vision's voice James Spader, which would have been a really cool thing. But I understand maybe that I kind of get why they didn't do that, but I still really wish it was just Ultron's voice as White Vision. Regardless, it does feel like in this Vision Quest show, which is basically Vision kind of finding his way back to, I guess, his in quotes humanity, back to who he was via White Vision. I think potentially Ultron being in his head and kind of like Vision kind of like debating with Ultron throughout that series, like if he is like part of him and he's like like in the program. I keep want to say hallucinating, but you know what I mean. It's like he's in his programming. It's like inside his head, and he's like a player like that, maybe like an overarching villain in that sense, or something. I've always said since Age of Ultron, I don't believe the Vision killed him, so that would be a great way of bringing him back through the Vision kind of being kind of reprogrammed, like kind of rebooting himself. I see a lot of potential in it, and if we're gonna bring back Ultron, that's the way that makes the most sense. Aside from like we've had like Ross Marquand doing his James Spader impression and like Multiverse of Madness, so we keep inching towards Ultron's return in these movies. We can't quite get Spader, and every time it's a little Easter egg, but I look optimistically. I think we could do something really cool with this. I mean, that's the only way we're going to actually have Vision Quest matter is if we have like Ultron come back in a meaningful role and it's James Spader. If not, then yeah, the show's doomed.
All right. Okay, moving on to something that I am genuinely excited about, and we've got Colby in the comments, and I know Colby's a big fan of this guy. Dominic Sessa of last year's The Holdovers, which, again, reminder, this dude just popped out of nowhere. I literally think he went to like an open audition or something. He had not acted in a film before, and he got cast in The Holdovers. Kind of a sensational first performance, especially considering how just literally off the streets he was. Well, Dragon, now he's got a meteor role. You want to tell us about it?
Yes. So Dominic Sessa. Am I saying that right? Sessa?
I think it's Sessa.
Yes. So Dominic Sessa, he is playing the dearly missed Anthony Bourdain in the biopic Tony, which is about Anthony Bourdain's life.
Yeah, so I got to admit, I'm pretty stoked on this. I think this is a really exciting way to really just propel Dominic Sessa into the mainstream. And I think Anthony Bourdain's life is kind of ripe for an interesting biopic where you can tackle it from any number of angles. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a cradle to the grave sort of thing. I imagine a lot of it is going to be centered on like his travels and the no reservations kind of thing. I'm really interested in seeing where this goes.
Yep.
Alrighty. Okay, moving right along. Trailers. Colby says he's so excited for this. I like Dominic Sessa and I adore Tony. Nice. Yeah, 2 for the price of 1. Also, really quick with Anthony Bourdain, before I forget to bring it up, I think this movie is going to hit especially hard with shows like The Bear being as popular as they are. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Anthony Bourdain's whole philosophy is kind of wrapped up in shows like The Bear. So, yeah. Okay, Dragon, let's just talk through some trailers. We have Saturday night. I'm going to say something, especially Colby in the chat. I don't know if you're going to agree with me here, but this trailer makes me knock off Nosferatu from my number 1 most anticipated. This is now my number 1 most anticipated of 2024. I cannot wait for this movie. I genuinely hope I'm not overhyping it based on a really well-edited trailer. But my God, Dragon, it's a really fucking well-edited trailer, is it not?
It looks really good.
Oh man,
this looks great.
I'm on the edge of my seat, dude. I really am.
I think it's the most anticipated biopic of 2024 without question. It's definitely, it looks it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, SNL's an American touchstone. It's the basically the whole we're doing kind of like the Birdman kind of thing with it,
Uh-huh,
in terms
uh-huh.
of the whole behind the scenes of like the first night, like a 24-hour
It very much
cycle.
feels like Birdman mixed with Steve Jobs,
There you
which
go.
that's an incredible combination of movies for me.
Yeah, so it's the first taping of Saturday Night Live, so again, probably 24 hours in like, kind of the preparation for it up to like the night of the taping and so on and so forth. It's again, it's going to be a standout. Gabriel LaBelle, is it LaBelle? Okay, LaBelle. Gabriel LaBelle, who played Sammy Fableman in The Fablemans.
Uh-huh,
He's
uh-huh.
playing Lorne Michaels, which I think is stellar casting. I want to see what this kid can do because he really impressed me as essentially
He was
unofficial.
impressive in the Fablemans, but I think this performance could very well get him to be like, okay, he's not just Kid
Yeah,
Spielberg. Like this guy can act.
that's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm looking
Yeah,
for because Lorne
yeah.
Michaels he's very lauded in the industry, so he could. This is going to be big for him if he can
Uh-huh.
do this. Yeah, so I'm head over heels for this movie. Everything
Also,
about
talk
it.
about a 1-2 punch of like early performances in his career to go from essentially one of the most respected filmmakers of all time to one of the most respected TV producers of all time.
Absolutely. And again, I love that I love how specific it is. It's like it's the first show. It's literally the beginnings, and you have
Dragon,
like
I
all
feel like
these.
this is how almost every biopic should be structured, man. Like, not necessarily every single one, but like, to me, biopics are so much more interesting when they take like a very specific time and place in these people's lives. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I feel like you get so much more richness out of it than just trying to go like the Bohemian Rhapsody route or something like that. Like Rocket Man kind of did the Bohemian Rhapsody route, but it did it in the way where it was like had the non-diegetic fantasy musical numbers and stuff like that. So that you can twist up the formula, but I'm just saying I really, really like when biopics just really zero in on their subject matter like
I
this.
am so looking forward to the Jim Henson portion and the Andy Kaufman. The fact we have Jim Henson and Andy Kaufman in this, I'm so looking forward to it.
And we've got to give it up to our boy Dragon. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like he's simultaneously our boy Dragon because of the Gotham thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Corey Michael Smith is
Mhm.
freaking Chevy Chase. I mean, oh my god. Oh, I can't wait.
Oh yeah.
Kogia says SpongeBob's going to be disappointed that Nosferatu is not your number one. Here's the thing. I didn't love the Northman. So, like, I don't know. I'm still stoked on Nosferatu, especially if because it's the Christmas release. I mean, that just shows that they have a lot of confidence in it. But man, this feels like something fresh. Like I feel like Nosferatu has more potential. I feel like Nosferatu has more potential. Like if it's as good as something like The Lighthouse and even maybe excels The Lighthouse, then yeah, I don't think that Saturday Night can catch it. But Nosferatu, I feel like also has areas where it could potentially disappoint me. And I think Saturday Night at the very least is going to be a really watchable, fun movie, if not a very memorable standout movie, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
All right, moving right along, Dragon. What's next?
All right, let's see. Frasier season 2. We got the trailer for this.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add. It seems fun enough.
I mean, it's a nicely put together trailer. Just it's Frasier. He's like just the idea of Frasier's back on top after that first season did so
I
well.
do like the idea of Frasier going back into radio. That's kind of a decent hook.
It looks like they're going back to Seattle in this, at least for a portion. Because I mean, that radio station looks exactly like KACL. But yeah, it could just be in Boston, but I
It
don't
could
know.
just be like one episode too,
Well,
where
that's
they.
what I'm saying. I suspect that we're going to Seattle for one episode. That's what I
Uh-huh.
suspect. But anyway, so let's return to the radio station. You got Roz, Bulldog, and Gil, like all of our old pals there in a way that makes sense. So that's
Still no, we're still conspicuously absent on
it's
our avatar Dragon.
yeah. I know the word on the street is he wants to come back only if it's going to be special, like for like an episode, and it sounds like they're going to. Smart money is they're probably going to say if they do a third and final season, that would probably be like when we're going to bring in David Hyde
All
Pierce.
right, Mr. Hyde Pierce, with all due respect, what else are you doing right now?
I think he's doing well. He had that show. I don't know if he's still doing that Julia show. He plays like Julia Child's husband.
Okay, fair enough. That actually sounds delightful.
Yeah, that I don't know if that show's still on because he did that. I think he's probably done a little Broadway or some plays or something. I think he's probably been doing that in the meantime as well. But
Yeah, David Hyde Pierce, what are you? Just a professional theater actor, man? Come on.
Yeah.
Be the funny, silly Niles character, David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah. Play the stick bug, man. Come on. Oh, I've got berry juice in my eye. Stop laughing. I'll be in my trailer.
Oh my god, dude, we could do like a whole fucking like podcast on just going over how great those early Pixar blooper reels were. Seriously.
Yes, we could.
All right. Last but not, or I'm sorry, 2 more to go. This one looks incredible, Dragon. Why don't you take us through it?
All right, Super/Man.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my most hyped.
Surprisingly theatrically released, which really surprised me.
Not just theatrically released. They actually released on Christopher Reeve's birthday.
Nice.
That's why they're doing it that way. So of course, I won't be able to see it theatrically because it's going to be one of those limited release jobs, most likely. But I will be definitely seeing it on Max when they add it there, which will be probably a month or so after the birthday premiere.
This definitely looks like it's got some "Won't You Be My Neighbor" upside.
This is my most hyped documentary of the year. It's one of my most anticipated films of the year. I've heard about this thing. I didn't put it on my list because they didn't really know it wasn't really announced until after that whole like listing thing. But I'm ridiculously hyped for this. Of course, Christopher Reeve is always an amazing story and just one of the most poetic kind of things of how a man who played Superman kind of.
But just based on the trailer, it looks like they're approaching it from like a really, really riveting way. Like seeing it like directly how it impacts the family. The fact that Robin Williams is apparently going to be a big part of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing I really want him to use that. One of the big touchstones with Christopher Reeve was always like him playing Virgil Swan in Smallville. Like I hope they touch on that and they kind of work a little bit of that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tell you, the thing that's got me kind of choked up was like, oh my god, this whole like they kind of teased in the trailer. It's going to be like a big kind of third act kind of payoff thing. Is like. He helped me walk. It's like, oh my god, the research actually, oh my god.
Yeah, totally.
That's what got me choked up. Like, oh my god.
No, this is one of those trailers where it does legitimately get you choked up just watching the trailer. Yeah.
God, it's so amazing. I am so hyped for this. Again, you're absolutely right. It's going to be the Won't You Be My Neighbor this year, and we're in desperate need. And Tiki, if the Academy,
I was just going to bring it up, Dragon. I was just going to bring it up.
I haven't even seen the movie yet, and I know this movie's going to be Oscar worthy. And if it doesn't get a nomination, what do they want? What do they want?
It's not about what they want, Dragon. It's about what they don't want, and what they don't want is anything like even remotely pop culture related.
It looks like he made a man walk. Superman healing the sick. What more do you possibly want?
Okay, mark this down, folks. I feel like this is a good Dragon breakdown to save in some potential potential montage. What do you want?
Heal the sick. What allegory is better than that, Academy? I ask you. Anyway.
Okay. Let's see. So moving on, we have the final trailer of the evening before we jump into the films. Sonic 3. Yeah, I'm not really like into the Sonic movies, but I think this looks all right. I think Shadow looks fun, voiced by Keanu Reeves, of course. And Dragon, Jim Carrey's hamming it up. And look, multiple Jim Carreys hamming it up.
I'm impressed. We finally packed the weight on him finally in this third.
I know, right?
I was impressed by that, but regardless, it's I'm always on the fence about getting into the Sonic movies because on one hand, I do. Here's the thing:
they are very, very, very thoroughly okay.
I think the thing is, like, my friends are really into Sonic, and they keep like, "Oh, you gotta watch." Like, one of them's like, "Oh, you gotta watch the Sonic movie," and the other ones are hesitant because the other ones are huge Sonic fans. I think it's a similar hesitation of like, do you want to sell for subpar Sonic? And this would be kind of my first foray in the Sonic. And it's like, I don't know. But plus, it's the thing too of like, I mean, I gotta be honest. In the trailers of Sonic, I did like how Ben Schwartz sounded as Sonic there. But my feelings on Ben Schwartz, it's like
he literally just sounds like Ben Schwartz.
That's the thing, Well, I mean, he's not doing like his comedy shtick like we've seen in stuff like Renfield. That's what I mean. Like him doing hamming up the comedy. That's the difference. That's what I mean. Like you see him just like, okay, so I'm just playing a role or playing like Dewey in season 1 of DuckTales. Like, okay,
I mean, that's the thing is that Sonic and Dewey are pretty much the exact same performance in my
ear. So in that respect, it's like, okay, he's not just playing Ben Schwartz's, kind of comedy shtick, he's just playing that, and then we just don't really do a lot with Dewey after season 1 of DuckTales, and he's just saying Dewey, just saying his name over and over again. It's like, okay, we've kind of diluted that character. Anyway, but so I mean, there's honestly the main temptation for Sonic is that Knuckles show looks really good.
I've heard mixed things about it. Like I've heard there's a lot more of a focus on the human characters.
Well, okay, I don't know. It's the idea of like Knuckles in suburbia that cracks me up. I got to be honest. Like that's the temptation there. I wonder, like, could I just jump into Knuckles? Do I need to see the Sonic movie? Anyway, point being, though,
I would say you definitely don't need to see the first Sonic movie to jump in. You might want to see the second one.
Right. Well, all the same, again, like Jim Carrey's Robotnik's always been kind of another like temptation. Just seeing like we're going full, Carrey fully becoming Robotnik with the heft and the mustache.
I mean, Carrey is just having a blast with these movies. You can tell it's very much like Carrey in the twilight of his acting career, like going full ham with it.
He's already given like possibly the best performance in Kidding, but no one's ever going to see that.
Right.
But, uncultured swine. But yeah.
All right. So, time to get into a very divisive, weird month, August. All right, Dragon, Trap. As you know, I have been really looking forward to this movie. I'm a big M. Night Shyamalan fan.
Had a good trailer.
It did have a good trailer. Dragon, for me personally, this movie is straight up the absolute worst M. Night Shyamalan thriller. Now, I say thriller because it's definitely not as bad as something like After Earth or The Last Airbender. Like, those two are on a level of bad that you just can't, like, they're just below the bottom of the barrel. But Trap is just, like, for me, I genuinely, like, there's a lot of things I did not like about it. The pop star in the movie is played by Shyamalan's daughter, and she has a more active role as the movie goes on, and so it's just a giant case of nepotism, like very obvious nepotism. And usually nepotism, like for example, I love Maya Hawke. I think Maya Hawke isn't really a case of nepotism. It's a case of like, yeah, her parents are famous, but she's also super talented. This lady, she's all right.
Well, look, no. Full on nepotism is like, okay, the director puts them in the movie,
which is exactly what M. Night is doing here.
Exactly. The director, whoever is like, someone got them the role in the movie that they are also in. That's full on nepotism.
Right.
You're mentioning is a whole in quotes, it's like the big hip term is like nepo baby kind of thing of like anyone who's like the kid of someone famous who just does their own thing. Like okay, it's nepotism, not quite.
So I'll tell you who does do a really good job in this movie, and that is Josh Hartnett. Josh Hartnett, I feel like, is in the middle of a little bit of a comeback. I feel like this is a movie that showcases his ability to be a charismatic leading man who's also a serial killer and also kind of like has this kind of like weird dark comedy around him. I think the fun of the movie is the fact that he is a genuinely good dad, and the stakes are less about him getting caught and more about the fact that he does not want to get caught in front of his kid. And that kind of like that element of the movie is fun. I just think the movie falls apart in two areas. There's way too many plot holes and logic leaps. I mean, like from the get-go, I was just thinking like, wait a minute. Like, are people really going to be this dumb to just like, I don't know. I could get into like a whole CinemaSins rant about the plot holes in this movie, but it wouldn't be worth it.
Maybe Shyamalan should just pitch the movies and do the trailers. You ever think about that?
I think he'd be a good pitch man.
Yeah.
And then the bigger problem is that as the movie goes on, I don't want to give anything away, but it does leave the concert venue like sooner than you would think. And after it does that, it's basically like, well, shit, like what we paid to see is now over, and we're left with something that's a lot less interesting.
You mean that movie's not like it's not landlocked at the concert?
No.
Like that's not the whole. Oh man, that's just
the entire third act is not in the concert.
That's come on, that's silly.
The entire third act. I want to say maybe the whole second half. Yeah. So yeah, Trap definitely a disappointment for me. Definitely one of the big disappointments. Colby says, I don't know if I'd put it below Lady in the Water. Or he didn't cast her in this. He 100%. He didn't cast her in this. He 100% wrote it for her. Yeah, indeed. The whole movie almost kind of feels like, hey, look how talented my kid is. Yeah, and serial killer too. Yeah. I don't know. M. Night's weird. Colby, here's a hot take on my end. I actually like Lady in the Water. I acknowledge that it's a mess. I totally do. But like, that to me still has, for my money, one of the most endearing Paul Giamatti performances. And I don't know, man. Stuff like Lady in the Water and The Village, like, they're not great movies, but I feel like they really swing for the fences and they're super original. But was he talented though? Well, I mean, I think if you're referring to the actress, his daughter in Trap, like I said, decent singer, I guess. As an actress, she was like okay, but did not necessarily hold up how much weight she had in the story as the movie went on. So yeah, I didn't really think it worked out all that well. But like an example of someone who does work out is like a Maya Hawke, who, I mean, I think she is like on level with her parents already as far as like talent goes. I mean, I think she's got a great career ahead of her. Anyways. Okay, Dragon, let's see. Moving on. What do you got?
All right. Jackpot.
Yeah, this looks okay. This looks fun.
Yeah, so this is this is a Paul Feig kind of action comedy. He did of course famously did Bridesmaids and did Spy in terms of kind of on the area on the good to okay side of things. On the on the not so good side of things, did that Ghostbusters remake that we don't like to talk about. But yeah, he's this was fun. Here's the thing. So it's Awkwafina and John Cena in an action movie here. Now this is not as solid and enjoyable as Quiz Lady, but it's close. It's no Quiz Lady. I'm saying it's not as good as Quiz Lady. But mind you, Quiz Lady is not an action movie though. Being the key difference there. This feels like, had this been pulled back a little, I think it could have been a Quiz Lady. It's close to being like a Quiz Lady in an action context, which I enjoy. I enjoyed the Quiz Lady-esque aspects of this film, where it's Awkwafina not doing her usual shtick per se. She's not doing her Awkwafina kind of stuff. Like, oh, it's Awkwafina doing her. Like, look how quirky and wacky I am. But yeah, so the premise of this is really fun. So it's a fun premise. It's we're in 2030 LA. It's kind of dystopian in a Purge kind of way, where the idea is like the economy, of commerce and inflation, it's on the rise so much that the solution to this is like, okay, we're going to have like a big lottery on the regular. And basically the way it works, the lottery works is that everyone gets like a little card and you click a button. And that's basically you signing up for the lottery and kind of like a big drawing instead of like all the numbers and everything. It's just we're picking a specific person. And when you win, essentially for 24 hours, if you can stay alive, you win the lottery. Otherwise, it's permitted murder. Like whoever kills the lottery winner will get their money. But you can't use any guns. Like that's the rule. You can basically 24 hours. Like the lottery winner has been picked. This is what they look like. Use your little cards to find them and track them wherever they may be. Kill them without guns, and the money is yours. So that's kind of a fun sell to me. Like that's pretty cool. So, and the whole thing is like, John Cena, he's like a bodyguard. For 10%, he's gonna keep her alive and everything. And he's John Cena is a delight. He plays Noel. He's the bodyguard. He's ever lovable, and he's the best part of the movie. So I would tell you, if anyone likes John Cena out there, loves Peacemaker, definitely watch this. This is great. Anyway, so it's basically kind of a buddy movie between her and John Cena, and we'll see the charm of Cena there. Simu Liu is in this movie. It's kind of a little Shang-Chi connect. It's kind of funny too that her character's name is Katie Kim. So yet again another Katie, and we have Simu Liu in there. So it's a lot of fun action, good fighting. Set pieces are good. My nitpicks are that the roommates, the writing in Act 1 until we get to her winning the lottery, it's not great. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of Paul Feig's kind of weaknesses as kind of a director kind of showing there, where it's like the roommates are dumb. I don't like those characters. They're just really vapid, really kind of stupid. Like a lot of like we're saying this is funny. It's not truly funny kind of stuff. But again, it's brief though. But it's the fact they kind of keep coming back because like everyone trying to kill her and get the money. So the roommates kind of come back. Mm-hmm. Not crazy about that. That and the legit plot thing I have is that our villain plot is kind of added runtime for stakes. It's not bad, but it's kind of been there, done that, and it's kind of like, okay, we need to extend the movie about 20 minutes. It's like, So it's kind of like I told you about. I don't know if you remember this at all. I told you about that movie Self-Reliance. I forget if you actually watched it as well. Did you?
No? I didn't watch it. I remember you telling me about it.
So this is again just the premise of this movie is similar to Self-Reliance in terms of like a challenge for money kind of thing. People trying to kill you. Only there's a lot more action involved. So in that respect, I think it's a good company. I think it's a good kind of like premise to go off of here. I think it's definitely separate from Self-Reliance. And the ending's pretty solid. I mean, look, it's an enjoyable time. I just wish it was kind of tightened up plot wise. I think it wouldn't really good. It was just like, this is okay.
I mean, I feel like a lot of movies this year are kind of like falling into that trap of like you just need to tighten it up. Just tighten it up and it'd be a lot better.
Yeah.
All right, so next up we have Alien Romulus, one of the big, highly anticipated releases this month, and I liked it. I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, especially considering Fede Alvarez was directing it. Fede Alvarez did the Blair Witch remake, I'm sorry, not Blair Witch, Evil Dead, the Evil Dead remake from about 10 years ago, and he really incorporated an element of dread and just like almost kind of like oppressive horror into something like the Evil Dead, which is like by all tradition a little on the campier side. I was hoping that you would do that with Alien because I'm not a huge Alien guy, but when I am really into the franchise, it's more when they go the horror route. I love the original Alien movie a lot more than any of the other movies. I mean, I admit that Aliens is a well-directed, well-put-together movie, but I kind of feel the same way about that as I do about, like, Terminator versus Terminator 2, where it's like, Terminator 2 is a lot flashier, it's a lot more digestible as an action movie. The original Terminator has, for my money, some of the more interesting ideas, a more threatening antagonist. I don't know. With all due respect to Robert Patrick, because Robert Patrick is great. But I digress. The problem with Romulus for me is that when this movie has original ideas, I feel like the original ideas are really, really good and really kind of carry the thing. For example, the lead characters in this movie, they are all young, but they're also desolate and they're living on this like old mining colony of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. And it's basically like essentially like a whole planet-wide version of the Andor prison, except instead of like them being in prison, it's just like this is just that like their work life. This is just like what they're destined to do because of their contract with the Weyland Corp. And I find that stuff on that planet, which only lasts for about 20 minutes, to be genuinely some of the most compelling world building that I've ever seen in the Alien franchise. Just how dark and just anti human life the Wayland Yutani Corporation is, and how much they're willing to just completely sacrifice their employees and essentially use them as cattle fodder. Dragon, once we get up into the ship, it's essentially okay, let's play the hits now. You remember the chest burster? You remember the face huggers? Yeah, we got all that stuff. We even got stuff from Prometheus. I was rather disappointed in the play the hits element of this movie. We even have a very forced get away from her, you bitch line, which I thought was really stupid. We even have the Ian Holmes character from the original movie. AI, CGI, like inserted into the movie, like in the style of like, you know, the Rogue One, Peter Cushing in that style, which I'm not a fan of at all. I do think that Kaylee Spaney does a decent job here, but I think out of her three big performances through, we have her as Priscilla, and then Civil War, and now this is definitely like her weakest performance. It's not bad, but it's definitely the least standout. The android is really good. I don't want to get too into the android just because I feel like I could get a little bit lost in the weeds describing why his arc works the way it does. I feel like I kind of have to give away a few things. Overall, this movie is it's not as atmospheric as I was hoping for it to be. It's not as scary as I was hoping for it to be. It's not as original as I was hoping for, which is a shame considering, like, if you just look at this from a technical level, I do think a lot of effort went into making, like, a lot of the effects practical. You have a lot of, like, men in suit xenomorph shots. You've got just a crazy amount of, like, practical, like, set pieces and stuff like that. Animatronics galore. Like, really, if this movie didn't focus so hard on the member berries, I think I would have genuinely loved this movie. So, yeah, man, like, we need to get our member berries kind of, like, out of modern franchises, dude, because I feel like it's kind of become an epidemic at this point. I'm just like, yeah, I remember the things from the first movie. Now show me something interesting. Show me something different. That's kind of where I'm at right now with these sort of nostalgia movies. All right. Okay, let's see. Random question: are you guys still doing the biopic series? Teddy, we are kind of, but it's a little bit on the shelf right now. We've gotten pretty busy with a lot of other stuff over the summer. Maybe we'll return to it when we have more of a down month. Teddy says, "Not Tiki, I'm with you on Alien, but you're wrong about Terminator. Terminator 2 is way better." Most people think that. I personally think the time travel stuff in Terminator 1 is really interesting, but that's just me. Colby says, I enjoyed the fact that they got the post-late stage capitalism stuff right, and I really like Andy as a character. That's the android. Yeah, agree on both counts there. Those are definitely two of the better movies, or better elements of the movie, I should say. All right, Dragon, what's next on your end?
The Union.
The Union, okay.
So yeah, this is a fun and simple Netflix action spy movie. It's Mark Wahlberg. He's the gag being he is a construction worker, aka a union guy, who basically gets recruited to help his high school girlfriend, who is Holly Berry, basically her spy organization is coincidentally called the Union.
Oh my god, that's stupid. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. But tell you, man, this is an excellent cast in this movie.
I will say that Holly Berry does intrigue me because I did just recently kind of go into a Catwoman deep dive. So
yeah, Holly Berry's
for her.
Holly Berry still got it, man.
Yeah.
Of course, she's stunning. She's stunningly beautiful, but beyond that, she's got chops, man. She's got leading lady chops. She's good. Let me say, she's a lot better here than she. This is not a knock against her in this movie, but very much it was like, hey, we got Holly Berry. Kind of like we randomly have Holly Berry and John Wick. It's like, do we need Holly Berry and John Wick? Well, it's kind of an aside. She's just kind of there,
Right.
She has dogs because we need dogs. That's what I'm saying. There's not really much to her just besides that. But here was like we actually did stuff with Holly Berry. There's some charm there. Anyway, so we have her. J.K. Simmons, he's the boss of the spy organization, so he's good. Jackie Earle Haley, he's the tech guy
Nice.
on the team. They get Alice Lee, Lois Lane from My Adventures of Superman. She's in this. That's what I'm saying. They get people up the wazoo.
Yeah, that's actually a surprisingly solid cast for something.
Also, like the big sell, Mike Coulter's in this.
Ooh, okay.
Now, don't get too excited about that though. He's kind of the fumble point of the movie.
Is he really?
Yeah, because he was like the big thing. Like, I don't know about the Mike Coulter. I'm in.
Right.
Mike Coulter was very much the okay. I'm in. Opening of the movie, we seemingly take him out.
Oh no!
He comes back, but seemingly it's like okay, well, there's still Mark Wahlberg and Holly Berry, but where's Mike Coulter? And I was like, hey, Mike Coulter's back, and then it's like, I don't like what we did once Mike Coulter comes back. That's when the movie kind of takes that nosedive.
Oh, jeez.
So that's unfortunate for sure. So anyway, so there's not enough Mike Coulter when we get him. It's just I'm not through what we do with them necessarily. Anyway, so we basically kind of when he comes back, we kind of tack on kind of like a hot potato kind of aspect for the third act of like, okay, here's something valuable in conjunction with the Mike Coulter character, and we're kind of playing hot potato with essentially the briefcase or whatever, like little case that the thing's in. We're gonna jump around. It's a good action sequence, but it's like, do we really need this? Anyway, so the movie's very much like, okay, we're taking the non spy. We usually it's a 6-month process to train this kind of guy. We have 2 weeks to do it. Mark Wahlberg's capable. It's kind of a fun fish out of water kind of spy comedy. Or it's not ha ha kind of funny. It's just more like, okay, it's just kind of like, it's fun, but it's kind of let me put it this way, it's a cut above what we've seen before with something like with Chris Hemsworth's Extraction films, like Extraction 2. This is a cut above like Extraction 2, for example. I would say this is an enjoyable movie. You will watch this, you will have a good time with it. But will you be wild? Like they really reinvented the action kind of spy game. Like no, they haven't. Is this as good as Mark Wahlberg's spy movie on Apple I told you about? No, it's not. That's what I'm saying. That's a far better Mark Wahlberg spy movie. But this is like the Netflix equivalent. It's cute. It's harmless. It's safe. It's fun. It's nothing really. Not reinventing the wheel though.
Okay.
All
right. Next up, something that in fact I do think kind of reinvents the wheel. Specifically, the wheel of coming of age movies. Dragon. I fucking love Dee Dee. Yes, this is a movie about Dee Dee Pickles and her coming of age. And no, I'm just kidding, obviously.
No, Tiki, don't mislead the folks. It's a movie about a young ballerina, and she just wants to push all. It's a movie about a young ballerina wearing all pink, and she just wants to push everybody's buttons. That's what the core of the story is.
All right, no, but seriously, this is a movie. Dragon, this movie is set in 2008, and I want you to understand 2008 was a very formative year for me. That was the year of The Dark Knight. That was the year I was
Iron Man.
Yeah, I was a junior in high school. Also, this is a kind of an important side note. That was the first year that I started smoking weed. 2008 was a very formative year for me in my life. And to see this movie is a fucking throwback, my dude. Like, the way that they use stuff like MySpace and AOL Instant Messenger in this movie was just incredible. It was like, I genuinely think this is some of the best use of on-screen to computer stuff that I've ever seen, as far as a visual storytelling component. And the thing I love about Dee Dee from a coming-of-age perspective, Dragon, is that the character is a loser. But he's a loser in a very refreshing, interesting, relatable way. He's a loser in the fact that, he's a dumb, eighth grade kid who has no idea what he's doing in life. He is not a fully formed person yet. And this guy takes so many L's throughout the movie. So, like, it's almost like a symphony of errors, like a comedy of errors that this guy goes through the movie. But it's so relatable. It's so heartfelt. I'm going to say this right now. Joan Chen, Dragon, mark it down. If Joan Chen does not get nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars this year, I'm going to be very upset. She plays the mother, and she is just heartbreakingly amazing in this movie. She's just genuinely like one of the performances of 2024 that almost literally left me like almost holding my breath. I was so hanging on her every word at certain points in this movie. I can't recommend this thing enough. I think it's genuinely one of the best coming of age movies I've ever seen. It's truly special. It's a truly special movie. Definitely going to be probably in my top 10. It's probably going to be the slice of life movie that makes my top 10. Yeah. All right. Colby says DD was a phenomenal movie. All right. Kokia says 2008 was the year superhero films went downhill. Yeah, sure. Okay, my union joke to talk about some kid. I don't know about the union. Look, Teddy, we got a lot of comments here. All right, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So I can't shout out every single comment. I'm sorry. Yeah, I get it, Kogias. I get it. The Dark Knight was a massive letdown. I do not get that. Anyways, I've had it up to here for The Edge of 17 for the best coming of age of the. I mean, I objectively don't think that's true. I think something like Eighth Grade is probably. I think Eighth Grade is probably the best comparison that this movie has, but I think this movie is about 10 times the movie Eighth Grade is, and I really like Eighth Grade, but I digress. All right, Dragon, what's next on your list?
This one I've been looking forward to this month, and it's time to be like basically the 29th, so very much it was kind of a last minute addition, but finally got to it. Gary,
the story of a snail.
Exactly. No. It's the story of Ash Ketchum's rival. No, not that either. No, it's the third. No, it's the third Gary you're thinking of. It's Gary Coleman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Peacock did a documentary on Gary Coleman, and it's rather intriguing. I would recommend checking this one out. It's a story of it's the child star tale that you've heard before, but Gary Coleman's is not a simple child star kind of rise and fall story. No. This. So the way they approach it, I should say, is not done like the standard child star tale. It's rather interesting because we do that. We kind of show, okay, this is how we got different strokes, and of course kind of like the charm they brought to the role, and that's only like, let's say, the first maybe 15-20 minutes. So let's say we get all that out of the way pretty quick, and maybe it's a little over 20. The point, we get that covered as much as we need to, just like kind of establish it. We know we need to do. He worked hard for it. He did a really good job. So we're able to interview pretty much all the people in Gary Coleman's life because they outlived him, sadly. That includes both his parents, his managers, and his ex-wife, and his female friend. So we cover like all the people that were around him. And we get into a whole bunch of, kind of like the money issues that he had. And he had like this whole conservatorship thing with his parents. Like, Gary was one of the first people to essentially, in essence, divorce his parents. He was the guy like saying, hey, my parents are kind of screwing me out of all this money. I don't, not when he was a kid. So he's like, given his height thing, I'd say he's about like 20, 25 at the time. He took his parents to court over like the fact that like all his money while he was growing up was put aside for him, and they dipped into it when they weren't supposed to. So basically, everyone milked him like a cash cow in his life. And the sell for this is that, again, all these interviews here, there was an unreliable kind of perspective thing, an unreliable narrator of events kind of thing going on here. With all these people are shady as all of them seemingly on one side, okay, loved ones, but every single one of them has a twinge of like they manipulated them, they got something out of them, and you don't know how truthful they are being because they're all basically in their interviews, they're kind of throwing shade at the other person, which is kind of interesting. So there's a lot of ambiguity as to like kind of the who's telling the truth here, which I think is the big sell of it. And then here's the overarching thing of the whole documentary, which really makes it worth checking in, is that Gary Coleman died under very suspicious circumstances, and the way the documentary kind of points the finger without saying it is the ex-wife likely killed him, and she's interviewed. So it's kind of like you're sitting down with the murderer to at least potentially. And it's like, for example, he had dialysis. We kind of get into we kind of walk you through the process of dialysis, and essentially it's kind of like a cleansing of the blood and everything. So he bled to death, and he practically bled to death. He was put into a coma, so he was comatose and brain dead and everything. And I think like in his will, he was like supposed to be on there for like 15 days before any decisions were made. They cut him off after 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Very suspicious. So it gets into that. It was really fascinating. It was a really interesting thing. I haven't seen one of these kind of things in a while, and I think it's rather unique. And I think Peacock did a really good job. And I mean, some people might say it's kind of like a gauche thing to do, but I don't know. Gary Coleman, just the way his fame kind of turned out, he was kind of like in that sense of like when the child star kind of grown up, and it was very much iconic because of the catchphrase and everything. We kind of get into that too. At a certain point, he hated that catchphrase, where it haunted him through life, and it booked him gigs and everything. It was a very good documentary. I recommend it.
All right, and now I'm gonna speed run through like 5 movies in a row. So don't blink. Or rather, blink twice, which is the next movie up. So, Dragon, I know Peregrine hated this one. I liked it quite a bit, actually. I know what Peregrine specifically hated about it was the ending, which I kind of get. The ending is a little bit of an anticlimax, but essentially, Channing Tatum plays essentially like a corporate CEO who has been basically he's in the process of trying to get uncanceled after getting caught doing some unsavory things. So that's why he's doing charity work. And this movie's directed by Zoe Kravitz, by the way. It's her directorial debut. So we have our main character gets seduced by Channing Tatum into essentially Dragon. This is like Jurassic Park. If Jurassic Park was just like, instead of dinosaurs, it's just like horrific drugs and debaucherous sex and trauma. It's like, hey, come take this helicopter ride with me, and and it'll be great. We'll go to my island, and they go to the island, and the drugs start rolling in.
Nothing good ever happens on an island.
I know, right? This movie also very much has like an unreliable narrator thing, because the more drugs that the characters are taking, the more that they're not trusting their own perceptions. Like days will go by where they'll just like black out. They'll start to wonder like what day it is. And honestly, I think that stuff is genuinely effective. I think the best parts of the movie are when the women on the island are trying to piece together exactly what is happening to them. Because the idea is that they're getting drugged and just horrifically raped every night. It's a horrific idea, and it's I think it does play for like a really interesting, especially when this movie tonally is kind of like more of a social satire kind of thing. So it toes the line with some really, really dark subject matter, and it actually does have a trigger warning at the start of the movie, which I thought was actually kind of respectable to do. Haley Joel Osment is in it. And he's a weird little creep. He's just creeping around the island. Yeah, I don't know, man. I saw this with an audience that was very into it. It's actually funny because 3 people walked in about 5 minutes late, and they had like a 12-year-old kid with them. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is not the kind of movie to bring a 12-year-old kid to. But no, like these people were totally cool. Like they were fucking cracking up through the whole thing. I was like, oh, all right. I mean, if you don't mind having your, like this movie is kind of a social satire, so it is funny. So if you don't mind having your kid exposed to this shit, all right, why not? The whole audience was pretty into it, which I will say, I think having the audience be into it and having the theater be pretty full, I think that played a lot more into my enjoyment of this movie than if I would have seen this movie with like maybe 3 or 4 other people in the audience and none of them were really giving a shit. You know what I mean? It's one of those audience participation movies that where like the audience reactions to stuff definitely added to it. So because of that, I honestly kind of am having a hard time like objectively like viewing this movie. I definitely don't think it's going to make my top 20 or anything like that, but I did like it more than a lot of people did. Okay, Colby says I like the movie overall, but yeah, worst ending of the year. That's the next Jurassic World film. Oh god. Like this, the boys, they're always just murdering Haley Joel. Yeah. Oh god. Okay. Next up, we have Between the Temples. Dragon. This movie's so disappointing to me because it has such a good hook and such a good cast, all right? We got Jason Schwartzman. We got Carol Kane. Like, tell me that's not a great combination that you would love to see in a movie together, right?
Sounds pretty tempting.
Yeah, the problem is this movie's just fucking boring. So essentially the premise of this movie is that Jason Schwartzman plays like a very, very religious, like Jewish man, like very devout to his faith. Carol Kane plays his basically like the woman who was his music teacher in elementary school, and she was kind of like his like one of his childhood heroes, so he has a lot of reverence for her. But she's kind of losing her faculties a little bit. And she does have this tragic backstory where like because her parents grew up in Poland during World War II, her parents did not want her to like outwardly come out as Jewish, and because of that she never had a bar mitzvah. And so this movie is about Jason Schwartzman, who's essentially a bat mitzvah like teacher, like basically like the one rabbi we see helping Harold and Hey Arnold, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Rabbi Katz.
Yeah, like that guy. Like he's essentially
played
that guy.
By Elliot Gould.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Harold, you stole a ham. All right. No, so it's a fun premise. I think the problem is just that first of all, I don't know, man. It goes on for like over 2 hours. It's like this should be like an 80-minute like in and out. And I also feel, and at a certain point, they kind of linger on like it's not necessarily like a sexual attraction, but the two main characters do kind of like fall in love with each other in kind of like a way that was like vaguely like Harold and Maude was what I kind of got that the impression was supposed to be. It just gets very messy as the movie goes on. And at the end, I was just kind of like, I was just left with like, all right, that was a movie that happened, I guess. So yeah, it's a shame, man, because like, I really truly thought that this casting was going to be just an absolute slam dunk. I mean, genuinely two of my favorite performers. I freaking love Jason Schwartzman. And honestly, Jason Schwartzman doesn't get to headline movies nearly enough. So, and Carol Kane is just not in a lot of movies these days, period. So, Carol Kane was the best part about this, I will say. Her character does have a lot of pathos. Like I already laid out that backstory. It is a really good backstory for her. And she does have a lot of fun lines. She is kind of like losing it in the head a little bit as the movie goes on, and the movie plays with that in both comedic ways and sad ways. So it's a good performance from her. Unfortunately, Schwartzman, I kind of feel like is just kind of like going. He seems bored, Dragon. He seems bored, and that's very unfortunate. So yeah, I wanted to love this thing, but in the end, I kind of just walked away, just being like, all right, that was all right. Okay, but now we're coming upon two really, really solid horror movies. First one is Strange, Darling. I love this thing. The only hesitation I have about it, Dragon, is that this movie is told out of order, Tarantino style. It's 6 chapters long. It starts with chapter 3, then it jumps to chapter 5, then it jumps back to chapters 1 and 2, then it shows you chapter 4, and then finally shows you chapter 6. So it's very non-linear Tarantino style. But I do think it does a good job where every chapter, like, there's a reason why, as the movie goes on, you see the chapters in the order that they're being presented. And that's because the movie is very much playing with your expectations, playing with who you think is the victim and who you think is the monster, quote unquote. I don't want to get too deep into the plot because I feel like if I were to start to describe the plot, it's just a lot of spoilers. Like I said, the whole crux of the movie is that it's being told out of order. So it's hard to summarize it. But let's just say it very much plays on expectations. It's very much a horror movie that plays on expectations. The non-linear quality to it is the big selling point. Although I will also say that the Tarantino influence is kind of all over the place. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah, you did Tarantino, but like for your next movie, I'd kind of like to see you like, you know, do something that's wholly your own thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Like, he did Tarantino really well, but it's still just kind of doing Tarantino. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay, next one we have Cuckoo. Dragon, this is my number 1 horror movie of 2024 so far. I really, really like this movie a lot. We have Hunter Schafer, who had a very small, like, bit part in Twisters, but she had a memorable death scene, which isn't a spoiler because it comes at the start of the movie. And she just carries this thing. Man, I think her character in this movie is going to be like another new kind of like iconic scream queen in the pantheon of horror. This character goes through a lot, both emotionally. She goes through a literal physical transformation as the movie goes on. Again, it's kind of a movie that has a very, very batshit plot. I don't really feel like giving away like the semantics of the plot. I will say that isolation plays a big part in it. She's moving to the Swiss Alps to live with her father, who lives out in the Swiss Alps with her stepmother and then their kid, who's who's her half sister. And so it's all about like the isolation of being in this new setting. Everyone's a little off. Dragon Dan Stevens once again comes in and just kicks ass. I love Dan Stevens in this movie. He plays the villain, and he is so fun. He does this little Pied Piper routine every once in a while where he'll literally just like whip out like a pipe flute and just be like, do. I don't want to give away like what that does in the plot, but it's so freaking stupid and funny every time it happens.
Yeah, if you really like Dan Stevens, you got to watch Legion.
You know, I should. You're right. I should.
That one's really up your alley.
I am growing on Dan Stevens a lot. So yeah, Cuckoo, probably my number 1 horror movie of 2024 so far. Next up, we have Good One. This is going to be really short. Good One was basically sold as essentially like a teenage daughter goes camping with her dad and her dad's best friend, and tensions arise. Now, Dragon, I love myself a good little pressure cooker, like drama. I love movies that kind of give you a sense of anxiety, give you a sense of like, oh man, like like being around these people is hell and it's cringe, but I kind of love it. I kind of love the like just marinating in the discomfort. That's not what this movie is. This movie is essentially just like a series of conversations about like the generation divide between like, you know, Gen Z and then like Gen X. And I was so disappointed in this one. This one was not at all what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be kind of like a pressure cooker of, you know, not necessarily a horror movie. I wasn't expecting a horror movie, but I was expecting like an intense drama of like, oh my God, these people cannot stand each other. There's like a very serious, almost heavy-handedly serious plot point that happens like at the third act. But at that point, I feel like it's very much like too little too late. I feel like the movie's already kind of like just, I don't know, man. Again, much like Between the Temples, which ironically enough, I went to the same theater to see both Between the Temples and this movie, just ended up being kind of boring. Like just legitimately just kind of the type of movies where I was like almost wanting to check my watch every 10 minutes. You know what I mean? I don't know. Not great. But I will say that this definitely isn't like the overall best month as far as Memoirs goes for me. But I will say that I love the variety of movies that were out this month, especially in the indie circuit. So, you know, even if not all of them were really landing with me, we still got a few that definitely landed with me, like the DDs and the Cuckoos of the world. Blink Twice I thought was really good in some elements, had a good theater experience with it. And even stuff like Strange Darling, also really good. Even stuff like Good One and Between the Temples has moments from the casting that work. So overall, very good month. Okay, Dragon, and now it's going to be your turn to rattle off a few of these in a row. Okay, 1 second. We have Colby here. Colby says, my issue with Cuckoo is that I knew about cuckoo birds going into it, so I got it spoiled for me. Yes, the biology of cuckoo birds is, believe it or not, kind of a plot point in the movie, so I could see that. Let's see. Dan Stevens in this was a conservationalist, and I love that element. Out here protecting a whole species. Yeah, indeed. Jealous, neither of you subjected yourself to The Crow or the Borderlands this month. I didn't regret it. Colby, what about Afraid? Did you go and see Afraid like you said you would? Because my God, that's the one where I'm like, no, I would lose all respect for myself if I went to go see that movie. All right. Anyways, Dragon, I'm sorry. Let's go to TV for you. I did not see any TV this month. I was busy watching fucking shitty Disney sequels.
Yeah, well, Tiki, I got 3 shows in. Also, I binged through the entirety of Seinfeld again. So you know.
Oh God,
that's 9 seasons in 1 month. I even wait till after I finish. I even wait till after I finish my Michael Richards book.
So Colby, he says he's got tickets Thursday to the AI movie. Colby, you're telling me you could be seeing Beetlejuice on Thursday, but instead you're going to see Afraid. Get the hell out of here. All right, I'm sorry, Dragon. Back to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, anyway. So, Batman Caped Crusader Season 1. So, again, we already did, Rohit and I already did like an extended spoiler cast on this, but just to give you kind of the abridged version. So, yeah, this was Bruce Timm's return to Batman animation after, you know, his turn on the DCAU and such. You know, it's been a little divisive amongst many circles. I really liked it. You know, I love seeing kind of Bruce Timm's original vision for Batman the Animated Series back in the conceptual stages. Basically, that's essentially what this is, primarily in the whole. I mean, the best aspect that represents this, honestly, my favorite part of the show is like Batman and Alfred's dynamic. You know, it's a big because basically Bruce Timm's original premise on Batman was that he was very divorced from his humanity. He was very like, you know, he's very wrapped up on the mission, so much so he doesn't even call Alfred by his first name. Always,
I've heard about that. I've heard it's divisive. I personally think it's kind of a cool touch, especially if you're going in more of a, an early days of Batman kind of route.
well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, it's a period piece. It's a period piece, which again
Not
was
to mention, Alfred has a cool sounding last name.
well, yeah, that's the thing too. So Hamish Linklater, he plays Batman, does it rather well, and kind of playing into that whole like a very kind of like a emotionally stunted kind of Batman who's very much kind of closed off, and he puts on the Bruce Wayne guys, but it's very artificial. He's like only doing it because he has to.
Uh-huh.
So it's there's a really good arc with the whole Batman Alfred kind of Batman kind of refinding his humanity within the Alfred story thing. That's really good. I like how that pays off. Diedrich Bader is in this. He is wonderful. He plays one of the characters. I won't say who, but we used him rather well. I did somewhat of a I had like a get together with some friends, and the initial I showed him some of the show, and it did not go well.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah, so that was uncomfortable for me. He's like, "Oh man, here's the thing."
That sucks.
So here's the thing. So review wise, the only thing you keep hearing ad nauseum is like, "It's not Batman animated series," where it's like,
which I will say, Dragon, that is not the type of like critique that I'm going to take seriously. Because I'm like, yeah, no shit, it's not Batman the animated series.
So here's the thing. So imagine
trying to be Batman the animated series.
So imagine this, okay? You're watching the show and you have your own opinions, and then you hear like, okay, what's the consensus with the reviews? And the review is like everything you've heard said to acknowledge, and you're like, it's not Batman the animated series. Why did we make the Penguin a lady? Stuff like that. Which is something they did. They kind of changed things up, which I think works because the Penguin. We've seen all sorts of other versions of the Penguin. Why not try changing up a little bit?
The Penguin is not the character that you should be arguing about. Like, there's one clear, definitive version of who the Penguin is, and I will, goddamn it, I will like. The kind of part of the fun of the Penguin as a character is that they're so like versatile in what you can do with them.
So you see what I mean, though, where you have like two characters which primarily have like Penguin, you have Harley Quinn, which are basically a lot of people ganging up on because like it's different than the anime, it's different than the traditional versions of these characters. So I can't put a lot of stock in that from the reviews, right? So I'm going in as I'm watching with friends, and then they're kind of making some at least decent or at least understandable points aside from those two things, which they're not about. I mean, initially, there's some initial shock. Everyone has an initial shock with the Penguin thing. I knew it going into it, so I didn't have that. But the point being, like, aside from that, everyone's like making some points like, oh wow, these are actual legit criticisms I did not consider. I wasn't thinking about that. So hence there's some actual divisiveness, but no one's talking about the actual divisive aspects of the show. Anyway, so here's the thing. Look, ultimately, I like the show. I don't care for this interpretation of Harley Quinn. I like the Harleen Quinzel. I don't like the Harley Quinn. But that's just me, though. And I see it kind of works for the plot they're going with, but it feels, I keep getting into this whole thing, it feels more like Hugo Strange than Harley Quinn with where we go with this take on her. Anyway, because of that, it kind of then feeds into the thing of like, okay, are we in a situation yet again where it's like we're kind of, it's perpetuating the stereotype of Harley Quinn can't be done right without Paul Dini, which we know isn't true. I mean, look at James Gunn. Look at, he did a great turn on Harley Quinn with the Suicide Squad. It's not impossible to do Harley Quinn right without Paul Dini, but this is like not helping that argument, I guess is my point. And of course, Bruce Timm with the whole, Batman Harley Quinn movie. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's not that as bad as that, but it's kind of still feeding into that whole like, Bruce Timm having a weak link without Paul Dini when he's tackling Batman. So kind of dealing with a little bit of that. So again,
also, Dragon, I want you to know that for the past 2 months, I've been trying to get my geek book club to read the Dark Knight graphic novel.
You mean Dark Knight Returns?
No, I mean the Dini.
So Dark Knight, a true Batman story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got it.
They haven't gone for it yet, man, but I'm trying. I'm like, look, it's like we are a geek book club. I feel like we are overdue for a graphic novel, and this is a very literary graphic novel.
It is. It's a shelf book, man.
Yeah. So I want you to know, Dragon, I'm trying to fight the good fight on that part.
Anyway, so look, overall, I'm down for more of this show. I enjoyed it. I would love more episodes of it, which it has been approved for season 2. But yeah, it's fact. It's like water is what? It's no Batman the Animated Series, but it's not trying to be. It's just there's another Batman show, same aesthetic visually, which fits the period setting. But that's it. It's like nothing's gonna be Batman the Animated Series. I mean, come on, it's like the most define the character.
Right. Yeah.
But I appreciate a good alternative, and this is a good alternative.
All right. What's
Okay,
next?
Mayor of Kingstown season 3.
This is a Stallone show, right?
No, you're thinking of Tulsa King. No, this is.
Oh my
the
god,
other,
yeah, you're right. I am thinking.
This is the other. This is the
Jesus
other.
Christ.
I recommend Tulsa King to you. I think you'd like Tulsa King.
You know what's stupid is that there's also the mayor of Easttown.
I know.
These fucking shows just run together.
Okay, to be fair, the mayor of Easttown thing, that's a lot more understandable than like Tulsa King. Come on.
Well, King is in the title. I'm sorry.
Anyway, point being, Mayor of Kingstown. This is Jeremy Renner's show.
Oh, okay, got it.
So basically, Jeremy Renner is the unofficial mayor of Kingstown. And Kingstown essentially is like a prison town, a town that has to run all the criminal like gangs are in conjunction with what's going on inside the prison. So they have someone playing like like Mike the Fixer from kind of like the Albuquerque verse essentially, who's labeled the mayor, and that's essentially Jeremy Renner. So this is the first season since his accident, since the whole snowplow thing. So it was, and he didn't miss a step, man. He's doing great.
Nice.
McCluskey family. It's Renner's family and Renner's character in the show. They're grieving a loss that happened at the end of the second season, and they're kind of getting back. They're kind of processing the grief by getting back to work. There's a lot of tension between the Crips and the Russians, because the Russians kind of pull a hit on the Crips in terms of what's going on gang wise this season. There's a lot of corruption in the prison that we see go on. We've already kind of had corruption in the prison, but it gets scary, like even more so than usual. So that's interesting. There's a problem character in the show who really has a big role this season. I hate it yet again. I hate the character Iris. There's always that one so often it's a female character, oddly enough. But Iris is she's not great. She's kind of like, oh, we're doing the Iris thing. Iris, why are you undercover with these bad people just because you want a thrill? Okay, you're not that interesting. Just get out of there. It's this thing where it's like Iris is like, oh my god, she's like the siren call. It's like, why? Why is everyone drawn to Iris? I don't get it. Kareem's kind of a little thick-headed. Like, Kareem, you know how Kingstown works. Why are you bumping up against it? Anyway, the season finale is a little on the weird side. We do end like the big hanging chad is that Mike's brother's in big trouble going into a potential 4th season, so we'll see how that goes. But it's a solid season. I don't think it ended as strongly as season 2. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
I mean, I still recommend the show to you. I mean, plus Kyle Chandler, he's in it briefly.
Wow.
I emphasize the briefly because he had a pivotal role, but it's brief for a reason.
Okay, Umbrella Academy season 4, Dragon. I have seen some talk about how bad this is.
So Umbrella Academy is actually an interesting thing. I didn't know about this until I looked into it afterwards. So I haven't read the Umbrella Academy comic. I've gotten it for friends who love the Umbrella Academy comics. They love Gerard Way, who's from My Chemical Romance, who basically created the show. And he created the book and by proxy, he's involved in the show. Anyway, this is the series finale. This is like the ending to the story in 4 seasons. And what's interesting is that it's kind of it's somewhat of maybe a reverse Walking Dead situation in that the comic is still kind of going on because of the interest in the show. So the comic basically it's basically a bunch of limited series. So you had but not as many as you think. Literally, it was the first 2 seasons of the show. That's all the comic that they had to work off of when they started doing the show. So you had basically season 1 and season 2 of that narrative, and then beyond that, it's like, hey, people watch the show, so now we've come back to do the comic, and now we have essentially a 3rd season, and now the show's still going. So now we've made a 4th season. So basically, the show is ahead of the comic. Oddly enough, it's so weird how that works. So they literally adapted all of their material in the first 2 seasons, which you guessed it, is the best of that show, the first 2 seasons, because it is adapting a really strong story from the comic. And honestly, after that, there's a bit of a drop off, and like 3 solid, nothing wrong with 3 ostensibly, but you can tell it's lost a step because it doesn't have the solid material to work off of because they're chasing the wrong car. And 4 basically kind of devolves a little bit from there. Now, here's the thing: I enjoyed 4. I'm not nitpicking 4. I mean, I think it's enjoyable. I like spending time with those characters, but I fully admit it is not as the material just isn't as strong as it once was. We told all the interesting stuff, and now we're just like every season's a new apocalypse, which is the gag with the Umbrella Academy. Every season, the whole crux of it is the world's going to end, but now in a new way, and we got to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So, status quo at the top of 4 is fun. It brings the refreshing thing is this: definitive close this season. We bring things to a definitive full circle close, which is, I think, the ending's pretty solid. But just overall, it's a bit of a weak finish, if I'm being frank. But it's better than most endings. I'll give you that. It's better than most things. Like, okay, we have to end, or we're pulling the plug. It's like, I don't think it ends as solidly as Sweet Tooth, for example. Sweet Tooth, I think, it was like a 3-act story in 3 seasons that worked really well. Umbrella Academy, they kind of, at a certain point, you get the sense they were just kind of going to see how far they could go, and they were lucky to,
which is not a good idea when you're adapting a pre-established source material and then moving beyond the source material. I mean,
yeah,
like Game of Thrones. I mean, I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I know damn well that's what. Colby exactly says Game of Thrones pains popping up here.
Well, that's what that sounds like. So basically, let me put this way: the way they ended season 3 very much felt like we're going to end big, and hopefully we'll come back. And it very much feels like they wrote themselves into a corner. They lucked out that, okay, we're going to get a 4th season. They said it's our last season, so we can actually end it. Where otherwise it would have ended really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended as best as it could, given the circumstances. I think it's a lot of like people just saying like, it's nowhere near as good as the comic, perhaps, or just I don't know. I mean, look, I enjoyed it. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, but it's definitely, it's not season 2.
I mean, I've definitely, I've not watched any of the YouTube stuff, but I've definitely seen some hyperbolic thumbnails. Like Umbrella Academy season 4 is a cataclysmic nightmare.
It's not a nightmare. It's just like it's a little subpar, but it's not a nightmare. All right.
I'm so fucking sick of the internet,
Dragon. I would tell you this, okay? If you really were dreading it, just watch the first 2 seasons.
It's literally not my favorite season of the show, so it's terrible.
That's the thing. I mean, I'd say the bare minimum, watch those first 2 seasons if you want really good quality, then make your own educated decision. Do I want to continue with it or not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so Dragon, I have a very important question for you.
What do you got?
Are you ready to listen to me talk about like a dozen Disney sequels?
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right, but first we got to get through some other stuff. Literally one other thing on my end.
Yep.
And it's a legitimately really good movie. So All My Friends Hate Me. This is a British satire. And Dragon, I discovered this movie through a video essay that's all about social anxiety horror. So essentially the premise is that the main character is getting together with his group of college friends after about 10 years of not seeing each other. And he was literally his college friends used to call him the skipper because he was kind of like the head honcho of their escapades. And Dragon, he gets there and it's very uncomfortable. Like the friends are just essentially like not necessarily treating him right, but it's in a way that he can't really put his finger on. He can't really openly call out. There's a new guy in the mix that they apparently met in a pub, and this new guy is just kind of like the life of the party, and he's essentially like everything that the main character kind of like thought of himself as in the eyes of this group. So it's essentially almost kind of like a more demented version of like the Woody Buzz rivalry. And Dragon, this whole movie is just essentially like about just that tension of like, if you're kind of got the feeling that the people that you're with aren't vibing with you, or that you've done something to offend them, but you don't want to ask, but you feel like not asking is just making it worse, and that it's like a fucking like festering wound that just keeps getting worse and worse the more you just sit with the situation. Dragon, that might sound like your personal hell, and it's my personal hell too. Like, I would hate to actually go through the events in this movie. I think this movie is genuinely like terrifying in a way that like a movie about like a haunted house or a serial killer or something is just not going to be for me, because you could end up in a situation like this easily. I will also say the ending of this movie absolutely knocked me on my fucking feet. Like, genuinely, like, you know me and endings, Dragon. When an ending works for me, it really fucking works. This ending really worked for me. So just overall, I thought this movie was a goddamn thrill ride. It was, oh man, just everything that I wanted out of just basically Dragon. You know how I kind of said that I wanted that other movie to be that I wanted Good One to be kind of like a pressure cooker movie. This is a pressure cooker. This is a pressure cooker that goes straight up into horror territory with just how uncomfortable you are in this situation and how much it just kind of lingers on the situation. So I genuinely kind of loved it. It was a big surprise for me. And then I looked at my schedule and I was like, shit, now I gotta watch like all these DisneyToon movies. Fuck. I got my one good catch-up movie out of the way. All right, Dragon, what's up for you?
All right, Life with Judy Garland, Me and My Shadow.
All right.
All right, so yeah, I this month, we celebrated the 85th anniversary of Wizard of Oz, so I did a little research. So this was a TV movie. It was very well recommended, because basically it was because I've seen Judy. We've talked about Judy, I think, in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like the other biopic. This was the TV movie biopic that was based on the Judy Garland's daughter, one of her two daughters. She had three kids, and one of them was I think Lorna. They had like an L thing. So Lorna, she wrote a book about her experience with her mother and everything, and that's essentially what they use. So again, it's pretty as close as you can get. It's from the daughter herself writing this biopic, so that's kind of interesting. And a lot of people say like this is more accurate than Judy and I think the main reason being like, this is I know this is now your favorite type of biopic. Mind you, it's a TV movie, and they kind of live for this sort of thing. It's a cradle to grave story.
Yeah, I think Rocket Man probably did it best, but that's just because it's like, hey, cool, non-diegetic, fantastical musical numbers. Yeah. Like those musical numbers in Rocket Man were essentially like my, hey, look, the vegetables are an airplane.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, I'm sorry.
But I see what I mean. Given the handicap of like, okay, it's a TV movie, so they go for an extended run time. So because this movie is really long, because of that, so it's over 2 hours. It's basically it's close to 3 hours because it's without the commercials. They're building it around commercials and stuff. Clearly,
Wait, so without commercials, it's close to 3 hours?
Yeah, like without commercials.
Oh dear God! Can you imagine watching this like as it was airing with commercials? Oh, that would have been a fucking marathon.
So without commercials, I think it's like because you find it on YouTube. Without commercials, it's like 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Oh my God! Oh.
That's how they did it back then, T. That's how the old, like the Temptations, like they call it a limited series often, but they are made as a movie. It's just kind of broken up, like the Temptations movie, for example, but kind of a limited series of sorts. It's very long. Anyway, so this was so yeah, the girl who plays Judy Garland, she's kind of like I want to say they have a couple girls because different age ranges, but she is all the Judys. They're really good. They're pretty on the money, especially kind of our main kind of young actress version of Judy. She's pretty solid. I think they keep her for the majority of the film. She's solid. We have a couple big names. Like we have Hugh Laurie and Victor Garber. Yes, that's right, kids. Victor Garber. Seriously, Victor Garber, good actor, and the fun fact of the reason I emphasize Victor Garber is that Kevin Smith and Mark Bernard on the Fat Man Beyond podcast, they are they've always said their dream guest is Victor Garber. They
Oh my
desperately
God.
want him on there, and they've reached out to him, and they keep saying no. Anyway, so he plays. So they play Judy Garland's ex-husbands. Hugh Laurie being the first one, Victor Garber being the big one, the one we have like the whole Sid and Judy documentary on. So Sid basically being the one that fathered her other two children. Not Liza Minnelli, the other two. Everyone was like, "You mean Liza? No, not Liza."
Oh God! Right.
I love this. Is kind of funny though. In this 2 hour and 50-minute movie, Liza Minnelli is very much a footnote. We have like there's a girl who looks like Liza Minnelli. That's about it. It's like, hey, we've seen the kids older. That very clearly looks like Liza Minnelli. Is she going to say anything? Does she have a speaking role? Not really.
Uh-huh.
I wonder how much of that's like the other daughter throwing shade. Like, okay, we all know Liza went off to do stuff. This is my story.
Sure.
Anyway. So the poor girl went through a lot. Poor Judy Garland. That's the thing that really reminds you of the big takeaway here that we don't get in Judy is that our recreation of Wizard of Oz is really solid. We see like the Tin Man, the Tin Man, Scarecrow, Lion, kind of recreated when they're doing like the skip down the yellow brick road. Like all that's really well represented, recreated. The studio. I think the most chilling scene for me in the whole biopic is this. So her mother was like the stage mom, like the original stage mom.
Yeah, big time.
That's the thing. Like she was the one who like probably kind of talked the studio or like very much supported the studio and the whole. We got to get her weight under control, and they called.
I'm pretty damn sure she was the one that brought that to the studio.
That's the thing. Like she would always like they're like her. She did terrible things to her, and you can see this. And all this is accurate, by the way. The whole thing of like. She would like tell Stu she's been carousing around when really she's been on like one date with a guy, so they keep her
right.
And like getting her in trouble. Louis, with Mr. I think it's Louis D. Mayer. I believe that's the studio executive, the one who really had his hooks into her. Anyway, so there's this thing where she's basically Buzzley Berkeley did a number on her. Oh my God, Berkeley was like a monster to her, and I have to assume this happened in real life. Where basically she's on the amphetamines and everything. Basically, kind of pep her up and then put her down. Basically, Buzzley Berkeley did a lot of takes, and he wanted absolute perfection. So she's like popping too many of these. Amphetamines. And there's this oh my God, I think it's haunting. If you can just watch and you can just skip to the Buzzley Berkeley scene, I would recommend it. If you can just skip, like, I'd recommend checking the whole movie. Yeah, but I'm saying if you want to just get to this haunting scene, he basically says, eyes, I need to see eyes. And you can see her eyes because she's hopped up on pills, like her eyes are going a little crazy during the scene while she's giving her all singing again and again. And she ends up collapsing from exhaustion on the set. And her mother's there, and she's, again, not rushing to her defense. And we have the studio executive saying, basically the doctor says she needs 6 weeks to recover from this. Like, no, she's 6 weeks is going to be a breach of contract. It's like she can have 3.
Oh my God.
And then it gets even worse.
So basically they're modern day Disney.
Like, well, at their worst, yes. But that's the thing too. Then he says, like, okay, they clearly see the mother stressing the poor girl out. So it's like, look, you, why don't you stay at the mansion for a few weeks? And essentially it's like this thing of like, okay, keep the mother on the payroll, but make sure it comes out of Judy Garland's end, which, that's just horrible. In fact, they're nickel and diming, the girl who's going through all this just to keep her mother out of her own hair. It's like, don't let her on the lot, but keep her on the payroll, but we're not paying for it. The Judy Garland is like, that's what I'm saying. They did so many horrible things to her, and then her poor daughter. Again, the idea that her daughter had to watch her younger sibling and everything and run the house while Judy Garland's kind of busy doing her thing and everything. So this is like the original rise and fall story in Hollywood. So it's a tragedy for sure. Sadly, no happy endings. I'm afraid, but it's trippy, man. Just seeing what the old starlets went through. Okay.
Okie dokie. All right. Next up, great one to start with because it's just thoroughly mediocre. Ursula's crazy sister, Dragon. You saw that clip. It's the most memorable thing in the whole movie. Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. I mean, Dragon, it's Little Mermaid, but instead of the Little Mermaid, it's Ariel's daughter, and instead of her wanting to go to land, she wants to go to the sea. I don't know. This is where the Disney sequels really were starting to break me, man. I mean, look, there are a couple decent things about this movie. I think Sebastian's role is really fun. He's essentially like just stuck being the babysitter again, and he's very self-aware about that. We have some fun gags with Louis, which is great because Louis was very much, shamelessly ripped out of the live-action remake. So it's great to see that character again. We have Flounder as a dad, which I think is really funny. The fact that they actually managed to age up Flounder, I think that's just kind of delightful. And yes, Ursula's crazy sister. It's kind of stupid that it's just Pat Carroll again. But you know what? She does a good job. She's hamming it up. This is gonna kind of become a trend, but like Ariel herself, she's just kind of like not very pleasant in this movie. She's just kind of like overprotective to like almost like a mean degree. So I don't know, man. I feel like it's kind of a trend with these Disney sequels that they kind of focus on the kids and then make the main characters from the original less likable as a result. So yeah, not a great start for this month as far as the sequels go. All right, pencils versus pixels. That's going to be the plot of Toy Story 6. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, yeah, this was so this is a documentary I've been waiting to watch for a long time. I just kind of like serendipitously was going through looking through the Amazon. It's like I did a double take. Wait a minute, so it's not for rental finally? It's actually on Amazon? And I was very excited because I've been seeing this thing for a while, and it's already just kind of it had like a lot of animation talent on it, and just the title itself, pencils versus pixels, and it's about the history of kind of hand drawn CG animation, the two clashing against each other, and how the one supplanted the other, kind of tale like that. Man, this lived up to the hype I had in my head. This was really good. Had a lot of animation fans and professionals like given like insider experience and kind of like so a lot of the talking heads were top notch. You have Pete Docter, Glenn Keane, on that side of things. You have like Kevin Smith and Seth MacFarlane. Like nice. They went all across the board. It's not just one studio. It's not just all Disney. I mean, Disney's definitely a big one there, but also they even have Leonard Maltin.
Oh my God.
Like he's in there, James Baxter, Mark Henn, like they went all over. Andreas Deja, like all the greats are in this, Tiki. Just very cool, very informative. Really gives you, kind of like a ground perspective on like how animation's kind of changed and how it evolved. Like it pretty much is like kind of the renaissance to the the CG era, and like how Toy Story was kind of like the prediction of the end, and then Shrek was the nail in the coffin. Stuff like that. Ming-Na Wen is the narrator, and she's
I like that. That's a good choice.
So yeah, she's the narrator. And Tiki, I'm gonna tantalize you like this because I really want you to watch this. Okay.
What's it on?
It's on Amazon.
Oh right. You said that.
Okay. On Prime. Yeah, you can watch it on Prime. So during the credits, Ming-Na Wen achieves Farmiga levels of cute.
Oh my God. Say no more. No more.
Just you gotta watch this. Already the content's great, but that's the cherry on top, man. That's the dessert to the whole meal. Okay.
All right, and then speaking of Ming-Na Wen,
I know that's why I put it like that.
Yeah. We've got Mulan 2. Dragon, this movie gets endlessly shit on, all right? Is it better than the first one? God, no. Is it even remotely as good as the first one?
No.
Dragon, I still had fun with it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. There's a couple things that I really like about this movie. Number one, I just think Shang is just a very enjoyable, funny asshole stick in the mud in this movie. And he's just got a lot of like really funny facial reactions, and I don't know. I just think like I got a lot of comedic value out of watching Shang just grow increasingly impatient throughout the movie. Eddie Mushu, not Eddie Murphy Mushu, but Mushu. If you go in, yeah, he's the villain. He's essentially the villain of the movie. But you know what? I think it actually kind of works. It's a character arc. Like, he is being very selfish. And it's not like the movie is trying to hide the fact that he's being, like, for example, Dragon, The Lion King 2, this isn't the first time I watched Lion King 2, so I didn't include it in catch up. But Dragon, Simba is being borderline racist in Lion King 2 for no real good reason. Like at least with Mushu in this movie, like the film acknowledges that he is being a selfish prick. And Mushu himself kind of acknowledges that he's being a selfish prick. And I think that's fun. And then also, Dragon, most importantly, I don't know, I just got a big kick out of seeing, the 3 army guys from the original movie just find girlfriends. It's just genuinely some delightful pair-ups there with the characters. I actually think those 3 guys are even more delightful and likable than they are in the original movie, believe it or not. I think they get more developed. I really, really like them. I think they kind of carry this movie. So yeah, it's not a masterpiece. It's not going to blow your mind, but I will say it's definitely in my upper half of Disney sequels, like from the DisneyToon era. And that was not something I was expecting, considering its reputation. Like, I liked it a lot more than I thought it would. So yeah. All right, Mad God. I definitely need to see this.
Yeah, so Mad God, I remember I saw this Phil Tippett documentary on Amazon a while back, which is also really good. And it mentioned Mad God. It was the first time I ever heard about the project, and then I've kind of heard about it in so many other places. But Mad God, already just in that documentary, it sounded like, it's basically Phil Tippett's his magnum opus. It was his passion project.
Essentially his Thief and the Cobbler.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So he worked on this for 3 decades, essentially 30 years. And so it was this big undertaking. Basically, use all the kind of stop / kind of, I think technically it's go motion, because you have like actual motion with. It's not just like you can like. Sometimes there's a motor in the puppet, so it will move a little bit. So I think it's technically go motion. But the point being, all of his stop motion expertise is put here. And what's great is that he's been working on it for so long, you see different eras of the stop motion talent, which is kind of interesting, kind of like a nice little kind of bit of character in the movie. So this thing is incredibly hyped up. You ever watch the trailer for this thing? It is it's a sell instantly of, oh god, there's so much build up here. It's it's the most amazing, like most glowing trailer you've ever seen. So yeah, I was a little trepidatious because of the horror aspect of it, but again, I kind of went for it because of just the whole the lauded artistry of it all. Just the fact that, like, this is like the most, essentially this is sold as like the stop motion film to see. The animation, so the end result is, I haven't finally seen the film, which saw the film. It's flawlessly animated. There's no dialogue at all, no real dialogue at all during this. But also not much story. So this movie is, to a T, I would say, style over substance.
That's that was very much what I was afraid of. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing.
Honestly, I kind of feel the same. As much as I respect the Thief and the Cobbler, that's kind of how I feel about even like the recobbled cut. It's a little style over substance.
Basically, it's like this, Tiki. It's style over substance, but the thing of it is, I don't think that had to be the case, because Act 1 of this movie, it's very simple, just playing off of the visuals. I think the story is conveyed visually very well in the very start of it. Okay, you have essentially a soldier, which I think he's billed as like the assassin. You have the assassin, which is kind of like a gas mask, like faceless, kind of like entity, just the nameless average Joe, kind of like Tommy, if you will. An assassin basically descending into a post-apocalyptic hellscape of some kind. He just goes down. It's a really great, it's a great sequence. And essentially, his mission is very visually conveyed. It's very nice and simple. Okay, lone soldier going down to this horrible place with a task. Pretty simple. Has a map. That's all you need to know. And then, it kind of goes from there. And like Act 2 onward is where we get into the. It feels like a question of like. The sell for me, story wise, and I kind of like it. I like it doesn't give you a direct answer. Is like the film is kind of a question of who is the mad god in question, and you have some potential answers to that presented to you in the movie. I would argue, and I like that. So the issue I have is that with all that going on, then we have like this fun, like with one of our mad god potentials, I would argue. This guy, we start the adventure over again, let's say, and then we don't really get an answer to how things turn out. And it's by the third act, we kind of threw out any story that we kind of had going on there. Which, I mean, the story does kind of, there's a through line, there's a thread. Again, it's not really story driven, but you can kind of connect the dots pretty well from like our simple premise of Act One to, okay, so he's on the table, and we kind of go into his mind, and we kind of get an inkling as to what this guy, what the story on the assassin is in visuals. Which, okay, things are tracking between Act One and Act Two, and then Act Three is like, okay, you have an idea of how things go based on Act One and Act Two, and then we just throw a bunch of like stunning visuals at you that are basically empty platitudes about existence as we know it. I mean, it looks great. I can't tell you at all what it's saying. It looks great, but again, I think any story that we had is just kind of out the window at that point by the very end, by the third act. And it's a shame since, again, Tippett, he went crazy. He literally went crazy working. He had to be, he kind of committed himself while working on this movie, because it's 3 decades of his life pushing himself. Again, Tiki, the artistry of this film is like, we blend live action and stop motion. And he's always kind of done this a little bit with the RoboCop films during the action, like RoboCop 2, for example. You have to try and blend like the real stuff with the go motion puppets, and he does that really well. And he's always kind of had that talent, but here he cracked the code. There are scenes because he introduces a wee bit, littlest bit of live action to trick the human brain. So you are connecting stop motion with live action, so it is completely seamless. And it's really brilliant the way he does it. So it's like he's cracked the code between animation and live action seamlessly in a way that'll gobsmack you. And there are chilling parts of this, though. For you being the horror fan that you are, I mean, you will love it. I myself, I had to look away during the surgery part of it. I was that to me, this thing will actually make you like send chills up your spine. It will terrify you. It is genuinely unsettling. I'm not just saying that, it's genuinely unsettling. I don't know if it'll, in quotes, trigger you or not. I don't know. Probably will. I don't know. I would say watch it during the daylight. It's pretty unnerving. But it's worth checking out, but with a grain of salt. I mean, I don't want to say it fell short, but I knew it was going to be a lot of style. It measured up to the hype in terms of the animation quality.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, Lilo and Stitch 2. Stitch has a glitch. So, Dragon, this movie, I think it's really interesting because I think this whole series can be like almost kind of like interpreted through the lens of mental health. If you look at it, like the first movie, I still feel like, it's not necessarily like Chris Sanders' original vision or anything, but I think the first movie can be very much looked at as through the lens of neurodiversity. This movie, you can look at it through the lens of PTSD. And I think that's super fucking bold of them to do. And I'll say this much. If we were doing the Great Ranking podcast, like around the time that I got my Stitch tattoo and it was like super heavily invested in the Stitch character, this movie would have been like 10 out of 10, number 1, no notes. Because it's like, it does do things with the Stitch character that really, just continue to pull on the heartstrings. There are moments with Lilo that pull on the heartstrings. There's some specific moments with Nani and Lilo. Them talking about the mother. Lilo directly addressing the mother, like, thanks, Mom, or like, like she says, thanks, Mom, like in relation to like something like, like she's kind of like thanking her from the heavens or something. And it's like, oh, God, she's like, directly addressing the mom. Like, I know there's some genuinely powerful stuff in this movie. That being said, I do think that as a whole, I think this movie is honestly a little bit repetitive, where it's like essentially the movie is a series of like they're trying to bring Stitch into like, just usual social situations. He has a glitch and it's like, oh no, Stitch is being bad. And I feel like we get maybe one or maybe even like more than one too many moments of that. Like, I just feel like it starts to become a little repetitive. That being said, like I said, as far as like emotional resonance goes, Dragon, like it's not on par with the original, but there are moments that get close.
It's a high quality Disney directed movie sequel, and also again, I'm with you. I really like Stitch Has a Glitch. No one else does. I love Jumba in this movie. I love what we do.
I love Jumba and Pleakley. Oh my god, just
but
gay icons, my friend.
Well, okay. But still, though, I love.
Oh, come on, the thing with Pleakley's mother.
well, no, yes. I'm just saying. I'm trying to focus on the pathos here. I don't want to, but yes.
No, right. No, but you're right. You're right. Jumba does have a lot of pathos here, and then Pleakley is just really funny comic relief.
Yeah, but I say I just love when Jumba is like he's realized something's wrong with Stitch, and he heads out to the ship, and like, oh my god, like David Ogden Stiers, he's a champ in this movie. God, no one will ever give him points.
I think David Ogden Stiers gives a better performance in this movie than he does in the first movie. I mean,
I don't know if I can go that far, but we do additional.
We do more stuff with him, though. That's the thing. Like, I feel like he gets to play more of a range in this movie, whereas in the first movie, he's essentially just mad scientist man. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing, okay? If you look. The benefit that Stitch Has a Glitch has is that it kind of takes, like Jumba from the Lilo and Stitch series, but we were able to put him in a slightly more dramatic context in terms of the stakes of this film and kind of like in terms of like the up to kind of feature animation-esque kind of look to it. So, I mean, I think that really kind of carries it where we like Jumba and we're down there and he's grown as a character and we take that growth and we kind of view it through, okay, Jumba's got to set things right here.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, just the repetitive quality definitely is the one thing that kind of sets it back a little bit for me, but still just very, very good overall. All right. Next up for you.
Filling in the blanks.
Filling in the blanks. Okay.
This is a documentary on Amazon. It's a little akin to Three Identical Strangers.
Oh, is it? All right.
It's a little bit. I mean, it's a little more grounded version of Three Identical Strangers. It's basically there's this John Bain, because it sounds so much like Bane, but it's like there's an M in there. So John Bain. He basically is this basically this guy who did a kind of was wondering about his heritage after his father like kind of posed like an offhandedly joking question. His father kind of shut that down, saying, "Hey, don't do that 23andMe test. Don't do it until after I'm dead." And that got him thinking, like, wait a minute, what secret is he hiding? So he did this 23andMe thing, and basically it's this reveal that about his parentage, which kind of sends a ripple effect through his family. And it kind of gets into the stigma of like in vitro fertilization back in the day, like how that was very, very much kind of frowned upon, and how it kind of led to a lot of kind of family secrecies and stuff. And it's a very human investigation. Just take this everyman; he's exploring, like it's about like how this revelation would kind of drive you, and also like the question, like, do you tell your father? Do you, like, how do you deal with like, are there feelings of hurt and betrayal? Like, how do you process this? Then what do you do when a pandemic hits? And it's kind of this. It's an intriguing story. It's worth checking out if you have time to kill. I wouldn't say like it's like it's pencils versus pixels kind of a must, but it's like sure. If it's a slow day and you're like, well, I got Amazon up, why not?
Fair enough.
So you're looking for this kind of a casual, it's kind of a rainy day doc. I mean, you have this.
All right.
Okay,
Dragon. And now I am going to go ahead and I am going to pull up a stopwatch, and we are going to spend exactly 30 seconds apiece on these fucking sequels.
Okay, get a little melodramatic, don't you think?
No, I don't. Right. All right. Are you ready, Dragon?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Atlantis Milo Returns. This one is really, really, really bad, and it's disappointing because Atlantis feels like it would work as a TV show, but this movie kind of proves otherwise. The characters are very flat and boring for the most part. I think that the stories show potential, but the way that the stories are kind of melded into one story, it's just awkward, it's clunky, it's boring, genuinely one of the worst ones. Okay. All right. Tarzan 2. This one, on the other hand, slaps Dragon. I love Tarzan 2. I was genuinely surprised how much voice acting George Carlin is doing, and that he's actually like doing fun things with his voice. I think that this movie has a lot of pathos to it. I think that it's got the charm of the original. I think while it doesn't look as good as the original, it definitely has moments where it looks as good as the original. This one definitely surprised me. Definitely one of the better sequels. All right. Moving right along. Twice Upon a Christmas. I'm probably not even going to use up the whole 30 seconds for this. It's very forgettable. It's basically like, hey, everyone really loves Once Upon a Christmas, so let's do it again. I really like the ice skating short with Daisy and Minnie, just because they use the hippos and gators from Fantasia. But other than that, there's nothing here. It's all forgettable. Nothing is as good as Once Upon a Christmas. All right. Moving right along. We have Lady and the Tramp 2. This one is, it's all right. It's pretty decent. I actually really like how they expand on the Tramp character. I think the villain is actually genuinely kind of intimidating, and to have someone be from Tramp's past. I think this movie does a good job. I think Tramp in this movie kind of escapes the curse of other protagonists in Disney sequels, where I genuinely think his character is more developed. All right. Okay. Little Mermaid, Ariel's Beginning. Why does this movie even exist? It's essentially Footloose, but with King Triton. I don't even know, man. It's all right. It's watchable. I mean, for me, I have such a soft spot for Sebastian that anything that Sebastian has a major role in, I'm going to enjoy at least. But yeah, this is just, at this point, this is the last one that DisneyToons produced before they got into the Tinkerbell movies, and you can feel that. All right, 2 more. Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True. This one is absolute trash. It's so boring. The animation quality is such a downgrade from the original. It's not even funny. The 3 stories barely feel like they have anything to do with each other. The pacing is awful. I thought that the stuff with Anastasia and the baker was going to be charming, but even that stuff feels rushed. I don't know, man. Just not a good one in general. Just really left a bad taste in my mouth. But finally, Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time. I mean, yeah, this one delivers. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite of the Disney sequels. It's not definitively number 1 with a bullet. Just because I do think the middle part of this movie is just it's a bunch of sneaking around the castle trying to find the wand. I think the wand could be used more than it actually is, but when it is used and the time travel shenanigans in the movie and the transformations, it's all a lot of fun, and it definitely stands out. All right, we're done, Dragon. We're done. We're done. Oh, my God. All right, best and worst, my friend.
All right, best. I mean, honestly, here's the thing. It's kind of torn between 2 things, because on one hand, I feel compelled to say Mad God, but I still the story thing really does bug me. I would say unanimous. I'd say more so. Pencils versus Pixels was a more solid, enjoyable kind of thing all throughout it. Plus, I'm not scared of it, so I'm kind of leaning towards Pencils versus Pixels.
Okay, that's fair.
In terms of the worst, I mean, not aggressively the worst, but definitely the contender. I'm saying it's the Union, because they did Mike Colter dirty. I can't forgive that.
All right, for me, best, I'm probably, I mean, I love All My Friends Hate Me. That movie did really hit for me. but Dee Dee is just special. I think I'm going to be thinking about Dee Dee for a long time. So I'm going to go Dee Dee for best. Worst, I don't want to pick a DisneyToons movie just because I don't want to give away, like, if I were to say, like, the worst and it was a DisneyToons movie, it would essentially be giving away my worst, like, my number one pick. Because, Dragon, the gimmick of our DisneyToons rankings is that we're starting with the number one and we're counting down to get to the worst one. So, yeah, I don't want to give away what the worst one was. So, besides DisneyToon stuff, I'm going to give the worst to, I don't know, probably Trap. I mean, it's just, like, there were a lot of things.
And that one job. They just needed to stay at the
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, Code Geass. I actually, if you go into the community tab, we have a list of 30 movies that we're including for the ranking. No, the Tinkerbell movies are not included, nor is anything that's theatrical. That was our kind of like two hard cutoffs. So yeah, no Tinkerbell, no Goofy movie, no DuckTales movie, just straight to video sequels. All right. Okay, Dragon, it's been a fun time. I would like to thank Little Blue, Keeper Colby, Code Geass, and Teddy, of course, for joining us in the comments. This has been a very robust month. Hopefully next month I'll be back to like having a little bit more of a normal roster of stuff to talk about. All right. Yeah. Hold on, Dragon, sorry. Okay, well, folks, we've waxed on long enough. And now it's time to put the pen down. Until next time, when we return for another fitting chapter in our Movie Memoirs. Dee Dee, stay out of my laboratory.